Hello and welcome to Leeds LUU Live 2019. This is LSTV and LSR's joint coverage of the leadership race elections for the Leeds University Union. So today we're going to have 7 debates in total, so that's all of the roles on the exec and the Griffin editor, of course, as well. So all throughout, you're going to be joining me. I'm going to be taking you between the debates, and I'm going to be joined by Charlie Strang, who's next to me right now. Hello, Charlie. So Charlie, you're going to be taking care of some things people are saying online. So of course you can tweet #LeadLU and we'll give you a shout out, of course. And also we're going to be taking a look at all of the manifestos and summarising a bit for you before we go into the debate. So Charlie, about activities. What are the kinds of activities?
So we've got 3 girls running for activities. So Hayley hopes to develop a more multicultural society and community at the uni. Improve skill learning platforms and encourage understanding of what the student union actually does. Lydia hopes to have more money into societies, increase mental health protocols and access to the LUU fund. And Chin hopes to increase use of the LUU app and increase recruitment, access to society and improve mental health facilities.
Fantastic, thank you very much, Charlie. Of course, you can find the full manifesto online, luu.org.uk. But I think without further ado, let's head into the first debate. So the first one, of course, activities debate.
By the lovely ladies campaign activities officer. Before we start, if you give us a quick 30-second introduction about yourselves.
Hi there, my name is Lydia. I'm an undergraduate. I'm in my 4th year at Leeds. I'm currently captain of the boat club. I'm running for activities this year because my time at Leeds has totally been transformed by my time in society.
Hi, my name is Qin and I'm coming from China. And the reason why I'm running for the activity officer is I really hope everyone can enjoy the fantastic life in the Leeds. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Hayley and I'm also from China and I'm a master now, so my major is management. So after graduating, I really want to live in Leeds and as well as working with the LUU because I thought it's a very good chance for me to devote all of my power to the student. Okay, thank you.
Very much. Brilliant. So obviously in your role as activities officers, there's probably a lot of things that you want to change. So many sides I know at Leeds. But what would you say is the biggest challenge society faces at the moment?
I think it's a really interesting question and something that probably varies across societies. The conversations that I've had with is space and funding. I think quite a lot of societies struggle sometimes with the space that they're allocated at the beginning of the year and how they use that because that has been quite prohibitive to them carrying out their activities. And then for other societies, funding is really key. I'm of the belief that money unlocks opportunities often, and I think there's a huge amount of really great activity going on at Leeds, and I think we'd like to do more. So for me, lobbying the university is really important there to try and get some more money to invest in great stuff that's really going on.
Right, thank you very much.
I think the most challenging things for the activity officer is like the informing people, because I think the activity in this union is really good, but seldom people, not seldom, it's like lots of people don't know this activity. So I think we should put more effort on promoting the activity, let people can enjoy the activities.
Yeah, so both of you guys are nodding, so would you say that Hayley, do you agree with that as well? Is that something you feel?
Yeah, I quite agree with the Chin's opinion, because I recognize that a student as well, the activity department already did a lot of effort to broaden or provide enough results to the student, but there still has limited influence, so I want to let more students, especially the international students, to know about the LUU as well as the activity department.
Great, thank you very much. And sort of building on that idea of like wanting international students to hear more and know more and get more involved with societies, how would you work on representing the whole student body represented here at Leeds?
I think this is going to be a really difficult thing to achieve across the year. There's so many societies. And for me, it would be working with the activities their eyes, ears, and grounds. They're really important and sort of build a really good relationship with society. I think it would be difficult to expect yourself to know everything going on with everyone all the time. So it's about delegating that communication out to other people. So I'd look to build a really good relationship with the activities so they can support you across the year.
I think I will listen to my friends' opinion because my friends from different countries, I think they got different preference. So I think I will listen to them opinion. And by the way, I think it's important for this union to got different countries stuff because they got different idea and they will work for more like people from different countries.
For me, I thought I will more focus on the social media power because I recognize the power of social media. I want to using a lot of kind of the social media, no matter the Facebook or the WeChat from China. I want to use that to improve and broaden the influence.
Right, so staying with talking about inclusivity, including national students, etc. Another sort of group of people who maybe don't feel very represented in society, people who don't drink, and even though they have societies for specifically for people who don't drink. Do you think there should be more involved with all of the societies, and how would you help to integrate into not just non-drinking but every society?
I think this is about working with structures that most societies have in place already. So lots of societies have a social set, for example, and I think sort of building some workshops to support them, to support the members is really important. Sometimes I think you can come into a role and have this task of perhaps building non-drinking socials, not really know what to do. So I think about the beginning of the year when you're sort of inducting people into committees, working with those socials at that point to suggest some ideas could be a really good way to achieve that.
Yes, I think it's really important to involve different kinds of people. And I think it is important because we can hold different kinds of activity for those people.
Yeah, quite agree with Qing's opinion.
Yes, and sort of as well as that, I'm fresh, so I'm like first year, I've only just started. And when I came to Leeds, obviously, it was a new city, totally new people. And I personally was like so terrified to go and join societies on my own. It's like a massive deal for me, going there on my own. So fresh, how would you ensure that they're really accessible during Freshers Week so that people aren't, too nervous to actually go out and join societies?
I think this is about communication. Actually, we have, as you said, like a huge amount of opportunity, and in Freshers Week it can be quite overwhelming. Kind of have all this information thrown at you. So I think it's probably about spreading that information in different ways to access that. Obviously, at the moment you've got the LUU website, which is just seeing quite a lot of improvements last year, which is really great to see. But I think it's sort of working with that and again making that information really accessible. And then obviously we've got the Give It a Go system in place, which I believe is having again quite a change over the next few months. So it would be interesting to support that and make sure that is as accessible as possible. I think for me as well, in my experience, the opportunity to try societies for longer without having to buy membership is a key area to focus on. I know that's an issue with sports societies, and again communicating that with the Edge and SBA would be a really great way to start to break down that barrier of pressure.
I think first of all we should be really friendly because we should let them feel free to join us and we can ask them to invite their friends to join us and we should use the different kinds of social media and let them know we are holding those activities.
Great, very much.
Yeah, I also think community is quite important because we have to let them know why we organize the activity as well as the what can we provide them to if they come to join our activity.
Thank you. And also obviously you've all touched on social media. It's a massive part of student life. And when I went to join society and stuff like that, a lot of the pages on the Leeds University Union website are quite outdated. Are there any ways that you think you can improve the social media presence as activity officer?
I think in terms of social media, a lot of it is about creating content, both for the website and their own social media pages. So I think perhaps linking the marketing department with societies, perhaps linking photographers, sort of build content that they can then put online to sell the society could be a really good way to do that. I know recently with the new launch of the new LUU website as well, some drop-in workshops work really well, sort of inform people how they can build that. And again, working directly with committees to help them know that service is available could be a good way to tackle that.
I think the LUU website already did a good job because they scheduled the activity in the like Monday, Tuesday, that kind of schedule. And I think the other point is we should work with those social media. For example, WeChat, because Chinese people always use WeChat. That's why we can use that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I'm going to have to move you on. Carry on to the next one.
Yeah, I also think we have to, the activity maybe to use more kind of social media to broaden the influence and as well as cooperate with many other departments working close with them. Yeah.
Well, that's brilliant. So thanks so much, guys, for joining us out. Wish you all the best in the elections and for the future. And I hope whoever gets actually a brilliant role. Thanks so much.
So there we go, that was the activities debate there. So if you get any opinion about that, please get in touch with us on social media, hashtag LUU. Next up is the community debate. So while everyone gets ready to do that behind me, I'm joined by Tom, who is the current community officer, so he can tell us a bit about his job, and then I'll talk you through a bit about what the manifesto say for community officer. So welcome, Tom. So, in a nutshell, one sentence, what do you do as community officer?
One sentence, wow. Trying to sum up my work in one sentence, quite hard to do that, but I think I just champion the students in the community, in particular issues like housing, transport, and of course, sustainability. So I think in one sentence that should do it.
So what would you say is your biggest achievement as community officer so far?
Wow, this question is quite biggest achievement so far. I think it will be community engagement. So getting our students out into the community and getting community to almost like community cohesion with the students. So I think it's just getting students in the community to kind of work together more. I think that's one of the biggest achievements.
Your manifesto, this point last year, you were in this position running a campaign. Have you stuck to all of your manifesto points?
Yes, I have. Of course, you know, I'm not yet out. I know you're eager to push me out, but no. I still got some time left, so it's still work in progress. I think there's still a couple more stuff I can do, but yeah, we're working on it. We're working hard on it every day. So, but yeah, I think there's still quite some stuff to do.
Thank you very much, Tom. So next up, of course, as I just said, is community debate. Of course, as well, all the manifestos you can see online if you want to, luu.org.uk. How are we getting on? We're not ready for community debate yet. So welcome back to LUU Live, brought to you by Leeds Television and Leeds Student Radio. Next up, we're going to be going into the community debate. So before we hand over to Steve, I'll just run you very quickly through what's in everyone's manifesto. So we've got Louisa. She's focusing on housing community, sustainability, improving and tackling food waste. Shiheng, expanding voice channels through WeChat, improving food and transportation, and more volunteering roles available. Evie wants less waste, more saving, better guide students about private renting and reducing burglaries. Kat wants a weekend team of community officers and pushing the university to collaborate, bridging the divide with students and long-term residents. Phoebe wants to reduce waste, improve standard student houses, increase student engagement community, and Paula wants better transport, £1 tickets to students again, and growing vegetables on campus, and a positive accommodation experience. So I'm sure they're going to tell us all about those manifesto policies in full as they begin their debate. So this is the community debate.
Hello, I'm Steve. Welcome to the community debate here at LUU. Before we get on into the questions, I want to give every single candidate 30-second opportunity to give a brief opening statement about why they think they should be the next community officer.
Hi, I'm Phoebe. I'm in my final year of geography. I want to reduce waste, food waste, energy waste, water waste, make student houses we live in less grim, and increase student engagement in the community.
Hi, I'm Phoebe. I want to be community exec because I'm completely love being a student in Leeds, but I do think there are ways to make it better, easier, more sustainable for everyone. I kind of want to promote the work you're already doing in regards to fixing support and housing, and then kind of implement new things like planning companies visiting on campus.
Hello everyone, my name is Shuhong. You can also call me Eric. Because I'm a person from uni and really want to make a better change for our community and especially for students in Leeds. So I really also concerned about the activities and how to build connection between campus and your city. So that's my festival and I want to make a change. So that's all.
Hi, I'm Kat. I'm 19 and I'm a politics student. I'm a community officer because I work hard to make the more accessible city, especially marginalised student groups. I'm northern working class women of the LGBT community. I think these are all important because they will shape my vision for this role and the people that I try to help and the things that I try to do. I want us to be environmentally aware. I want us to work with long-term residents. I want to be able to walk safely at night. So vote for me.
Hi, I'm Louisa and I want to be a community officer. I believe that students deserve a better standard of housing in Leeds. I also believe that we can definitely improve household recycling in areas that have a lot of students in. I also want the neighbourhoods to feel a lot safer for students.
Hi everybody, I'm Paula. Lovely to see you all here. I'm an international student, so please feel free to correct me if I made any mistake or anything at all. I'm studying global development, and I think community is very much about diversity being our main goal, being our richness. I was watching a movie yesterday night, it's called Pride, and it was brilliant to see how different groups can get together and work for different objectives and reach them.
Thanks, Paula. So if you haven't been watching the news, politics is falling apart at the moment. If a general election was called next week, how would you engage students to vote? And what do you think is the biggest issue for students? I'll start with Evie.
Yeah, obviously with what's going on in the political situation is quite a complex question, especially like could happen at any moment. I think it is good to be prepared for a situation like that. I do think young people being engaged in politics is a big issue because we do have these views, but I think the main reason people probably aren't voting is of the accessibility. I think one of the key things I'd work to as a community officer would be like looking at the manifestos of all groups and making them like maybe sending emails to them in more layman's terms so people can understand and kind of draw out the key points they need to know, and hopefully that can engage them also.
So I think the most important for young people get involved in politics is that you need to give your issue attract them. As I see some investigation about the young people involved in voting. Some young people really concerned about some topic, but they don't like the advertising about the politics. So I think I should use make good use of social media to attract more young people to really think politics can really change their life. And this is also my duty, my community officer. So that's my idea.
I think a lot of the problems students have related to politics is that they can't relate to it. A bit of context for me, I work quite closely with our future choice. I go down to Parliament, I'm in contact with a few MPs on the issue of Brexit, including an independent group. So I think for me, when I do campaign to students about voting in general elections or for something that I want to do, I find it easier to relate to things that they are sort of struggling with, so like housing and medical care and stuff, and saying to them the solution if you want to change your problem that is to vote. And I think because of the back and forth in Parliament can be very confusing, making it relatable is definitely the way to go, and that's what I would do in the role of community officer.
I agree with what everyone said, but I also think it's important to realise that students are part of a trans community. So because they move in and out of an area quite quickly, they often don't feel like they're part of that local community. So obviously it's important to encourage students to feel like they can be part of local politics, not just like party politics, but also being part of the local. In the local community, they can actually really make a difference themselves.
I agree very much with Kat. I think making students identify with someone, so making them able to see a representation as a way to fight for or against their issues is one of the main points. So definitely engaging them. Possibly personally, I really think that communicating personally helps very much. So understanding what is the issue here. Let's talk about it. Let's discuss and see how we can work on that together.
Yeah, I think everyone's made some great points about making it more relatable and accessible to people. And I guess like free stuff always helps to get people to vote, because that's ultimately what you need.
I don't think I heard many of what the top issue was from many of you. So could you just say in one word, each of you going around, what the top issue is for students? Start with you.
I think the top issue for students is the tuition fees. Whether your tuition fees is worth for you to pay, it's a service or something.
Okay,
yeah.
tuition fees.
I just think the biggest issue for students is they feel disconnected from what's happening in Parliament.
I think it's accessibility. People don't know where to go and vote and where they can actually make a difference themselves.
I agree with what they said. I think isolation is another big problem.
A lack of understanding.
Yeah, like Louisa said, accessibility and kind of being able to relate.
Okay, fantastic. Next question. How will you foster links with local stakeholders and charities in the community? And what experience do you have of doing this in the past? I'll start with Kat.
I have a lot of experience working with Leeds charities. We held a period party raising money for refugees and asylum seekers. I've worked with BASIS, a sex work charity. I've worked with sex support after rape and sexual violence. I've worked with the Young Women's Trust, and I think one point of my manifesto is to make vintage clothing more accessible through inviting charities to host these events rather than companies, and I think that would definitely be a good way of involving local charities rather than excluding them from something that they've actually given to society.
Yeah, I agree. We've got a lot of really great local charities in Leeds. I've personally helped out with MAP, which works to get arts education for young people who aren't able to readily access that sort of education. So I feel like students in Leeds have a really great we've basically got really great work for the students who care about a lot of causes, and I think that the University of Leeds students can really help out with a lot of local charities because of the skills that they've got at university.
I agree very much with your points. I'm involved currently with 2 charities, and I think it's very much about identifying what the main way to create a partnership can be, so working alongside with them, and this helps very much engaging students too, so I guess this is the main thing we could do.
Sustainability has been the thing that I've most been involved with. I did some work with the Conservation Society in second year, and now I'm working with the Real Junk Food Project to try and reduce food waste and sort of have it in a community cafe setting.
One of the things I'm kind of passionate with dealing with something like that is Home Society, which is part of the union. It's kind of addressing the issue of like homelessness in Leeds, which I think coming from a small town and moving to a big city was something I noticed like so much when I came here. And in my manifesto, I again want to deal with food waste, and I definitely think there's a way we can like integrate that to support these like different issues.
So one experience for me is that I get involved in a food society to teach some schools or students or outside the campus how to cook some Chinese food. I think it's really enjoying this. It's not just a cooking lesson, it's also a cultural communication way. So it's really good to expand this way in the future. And really food is the most crucial part of many people concerned. I want to use this interesting kind of form to do this.
In recent years, there's been a rise in hate crime, especially in anti-Semitism. What will you do to tackle this and make students feel safe in our city?
So I think it's really important to work with the current hate crime project that we have at the Leeds University Union, but also make students aware that they can come to the student union and speak to one of the advisors in the advice centre, report things that have happened without having to break their anonymity. I can't even say that word, but you know what I mean. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. LUU should be a main point to rely on, but I also think that on a more personal point of view, we should work a bit more with course reps and schools rep so that students can feel a bit more in their comfort zone and can be somehow facilitated in talking to someone they probably know more than someone they don't. So,
yeah, I think sort of creating a safe space for people to sort of say any problems that they might have, but also to like encourage like learning amongst different groups. Because I think a lot of disputes and like animosity comes from a lack of understanding. So I think I'd work to break that down.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that point. I think the student community should be more integrated with the Leeds kind of people who live in Leeds in general. I want to kind of provide more access to self-defense classes for everyone, and then also increase the amount of support after crime. I know there's victim support groups, but I think there should be more options of ways people can kind of reach out for help, because I know that's something like people I know struggled with. So
I think I will expand the concept of the safety. It not only means you will feel safe if you walk in the dark side. It also means the safety for your body and the safety for your mental health. So I will trying to create more accessibility on online platform and more such as medical group to keep students be safe if they got injured or some meet any other problems. So I will strengthen this concept and expand it in many other aspects.
Hate crime is illegal, yet people don't come forward because they fear they won't be taken seriously, and I think a key part of this role is to not be afraid to reach out and work with people who aren't involved with the union directly. So I would work very closely with West Yorkshire Police to make sure that they actually prioritise hate crimes, they take them seriously, they have special officers in place so that people who are suffering from a racial hate crime, sexual orientation related one, gender, whatever, have someone that looks like them, who understands them, that they can talk to. So I won't be afraid to go to West Yorkshire Police and to lobby them for a better understanding of hate crime.
Littering and the environment are big issues in the student community. How will you make a difference when others have failed to do so effectively?
Sorry,
do you want me to repeat the question? That's cool. Littering and the environment are big issues in the student community. How will you make a difference when others have failed to do so effectively?
Well, sustainability is one of the main points of my manifesto. I really think we live in an era where we should definitely take seriously nature and environment. Very pragmatically on campus, first of all, agroecology is a very, very, very big instrument we have and we can work with. So that would be one of my main points. Increasing organic waste bins is something else we should definitely do. And yes, I guess I'll give the word to you too. I know you both have quite interesting points on that.
Yeah, so I think you've got to reduce the amount of waste that's sort of on campus anyway. So like less packaging for, like from the co-op, less food waste generally from the refectory. Because I know often they don't give away any of their surplus food. Sort of a promotion of the Too Good To Go app. And like the companies who come in Freshers Week and stuff, like Domino's was a classic example. There was just the empty Domino's bags everywhere and they were completely unnecessary. I think as a geography student it's hard because people don't appreciate like the environmental problems in the same way that I'm aware of. So I think increasing awareness would be a good way to help that.
Yeah, I think going on from that, I definitely want to push for a ban on leafleting on campus because the amount of waste it produces kind of, when we're living in the digital age, it seems completely unnecessary. And I also would like to introduce a recycling reward scheme. So in areas like Hyde Park, there's obviously a lot of visible waste as you kind of walk around. And I think, say, if you were to have a house party and you had loads of glass bottles, rather than taking them to a bottle bank, you could bring them to the union and get points to spend on something within the union. So it kind of provides more of a reason for people to want to get involved with it, I guess.
So I think the most important thing is make your activities be more interesting. If you can make the recycle being interesting thing, I think you can get much more students involved in your activities. For example, you can teach some lessons to teach students how their plastic bottles can be made as a creative things, and that kind of lessons will really get more students involved in recycling activities. So I think this is important.
One issue that I am passionate about is reducing food waste, and I found this to be very helpful through the app Olio, which is basically where you can exchange food that is going to go to waste. I'd lobby the union to promote or partner with that app so that students were more aware of it, because it has so much potential that it just doesn't get used for. Another issue I'm very passionate about is transport. I would personally love to be able to cycle to university, but the roads of Leeds just don't make that possible for me. It's terrifying. So one thing that I would do is to create union-provided cycling lessons to teach people how to navigate those like busy, complicated roads that many of us want to but are afraid to.
I think it's also really important that we look at the issues on campus and in the student union itself. Basically, we still use plastic forks, we still have plastic straws in the student union, so I feel like that's really important. Everyone knows that those things are bad, but we still give them out. I also think there should be more recycling points around student areas which have a lot of students in. I know I live in Hyde Park and there's not a lot of glass bins around, and it does make it less accessible for people to actually access those recycling services. I also think that when students come to university, there should be a greater emphasis on recycling education. So I know when I come from London, and it's completely different the way that we recycle in London than it is in Leeds, and having to learn what you can and can't recycle is really important.
Thank you. Our last question now. Many students don't live in Hyde Park or Headingley. What should LUU be doing for them?
I guess just like offering them the same sort of support. Because obviously, yeah, there's a lot of focus on like crime in Hyde Park and stuff. But if you don't live there, then you're not really going to care. So I guess just finding out what the issues for students who live further away are, and then before you can tackle them.
I think a group that are often completely forgot about in student life is commuters. I know quite a few, and they're kind of never considered in debates like this because they don't live in the Leeds area, but they are part of the student community. So I'd really want to set up events so they can meet each other and like kind of get the social life we have living in Leeds where they live, and also travel together to make their travelling more sustainable.
So I will hold many groups to connect students who live together, and then build connection between them and the local residents who live near them, and give them more chances, make them accessible to the volunteer job and other kind of job which they are easy to do. So it's not just focusing on some specific area, but I will want to expand their services to any place they are convenient for them.
We definitely do focus too much on Hyde Park and Headingley, and I think one way to include commuting students or students that live further out would be to raise awareness of the events within the union that they can attend, invite them to the ones that are in Hyde Park and Headingley, see if they want to like check out the area or whatever. I understand that coming from a northern town myself, that it can get quite lonely living away from like your campus, and that there aren't that many people that go to university and understand you, so I think that network would be great through the union events that we could promote to those students.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the idea of bringing students who commute from a faraway place. They often don't feel like they're fully part of the university because they don't live in those sort of student areas. So it's definitely important to emphasise the role of the student union in bringing that and making them know that they're part of the local community, and that they should also have the same access to and resources and information available to the students that live in more student-y areas.
I agree. I also think that community is very much about students telling us what they need. So I would probably want to do some focus groups to understand what the real issues they feel exist. So apart from that, Kat's point was really interesting to bring them more close to what we do. Would be also interesting to bring us more close to them, so more events probably further would be also an interesting initiative.
That brings us to the end of our debate now, but I do want to give you one last chance to speak to all the voters. So I'm going to give everyone 30 seconds to give a closing speech, and we went that way for the opening speeches, so I think it's only fair we go that way for the closing speeches. So Paula, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so just, I think I just want to build on what I was saying at the beginning. So I was watching this movie, And I think it's brilliant because it teaches how two very different communities, lesbians and gays and minors, get together in fighting for something that is very far from each other, but at the same time, it's very close to each other because I guess we're all humans, we're all part of a community, we all share values. And building on that diversity I was mentioning at the beginning, I think our community should really start valuing it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So the one thing I really want to fight for is the quality of student housing. I have practical experience as working part of the help and support team. I know that students are signing for terrible houses, and I know that landlords are really just taking the mick a lot of the time. So I want to make sure that we get better quality, more accessible housing with lower rents and more cooperative landlords, as well as focusing on empowering the local community and engagement with the local community from students, and also focusing on sustainability on campus.
After hearing everything that I've had to say, I hope that I've convinced you that I could be your first vote for community officer. My focus is helping marginalised students to access Leeds through housing, through the environmental awareness that I want to bring through uni events, through all of that. I'm very passionate about this role because I really want to help, especially working class students, to feel more included in what's going on in Leeds. I have Leeds students and the Leeds community at the heart of everything that I do. I do it right now, like I'm very involved in the union, so I hope that I can carry that on to the community officer role. Thank you.
So the main reason I want to run for a community officer is that I really get involved in many activities relevant to your community, and what's more, I also want to make my manifesto be much more practical, but not just the theoretical slogans. For example, at least so many things it has already been done, but the space for you to improvement. So I will focus on more practical ways to make improvements for students and get students more involved in communities. Yeah.
Hopefully I've kind of explained why I think I'd be really suited to making the uni better and easier for all of the different students we have here. My passion for sustainability, hopefully that came across well, and if you kind of agree with what I'm saying and think I'm suitable, please vote Evie for community.
Yeah. Waste is bad, mouldy, grim, foul, cold. Student houses are bad. Community is good, and I want to develop links with that. So yeah, vote for Phoebe.
Thank you to all candidates. It takes a lot to put yourselves forward for election. That brings us to the end of the debate. Can I have a round of applause for all the candidates, and back to you, Sab.
Thanks, Steve. So, yes, that was the community debate there, the debate for community officer. And listening to that here in Pyramid Theatre was Aaron, who works for the union as a community outreach worker. So what are the key takeaways from that for you?
Well, I think that they covered a lot of issues we have in the community. So sustainability is definitely one, access to further to reach students who might commute in, and that kind of thing. And, I think that was a positive discussion, and definitely highlighted a lot of issues that I face kind of working in the union I see day to day. So that was refreshing to see.
Could you just tell me a bit about what you do as a community outreach worker?
Yeah, of course. So my job is to basically go into the community and link us with students, because obviously in the community they might not see a lot of students, or students might not see a lot of residents. So that cohesion is really important. So we do different campaigns, recycling, noise disruption, safety, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So next up on Lead LUU Live 2019, thank you very much, Aaron, by the way. We have the debate for the Griffin editor. So there are two candidates for that. You might be thinking, well, why is the Griffin editor elected in the same way as the union exec? Well, I can tell you. So in the union constitution, which is the set of rules that the union runs on, there's a little line that says there will be a student newspaper, and therefore to make sure that there's a student newspaper, the Griffin editor is elected in the same way that the union exec are elected. So if you're not aware of what the Griffin is, where have you been? So Griffin is the union's newspaper, so it's got a website as well, so you can check out all the stuff on there. This week you can see all of the lovely stuff that they've got a picture of all of our lovely candidates that we're interviewing today. So you can check that out as well. You find it around the union or online. And inside that, there are two write-ups from the two people who are running for Griffin Editor as well. So you can hear from those two, hear from Ed and Ian, who've both got previous experience working on the Griffin. And we'll hear from them in debate in just a few minutes. Hello and welcome back to LUU Live 2019, brought to you by Leeds Student Television and Leeds Student Radio. Leeds Student Television, I can't say the name of my own society, oh dear. So today what we're doing is we're having debates between the candidates to be these people in the future, so these are your exec, and also the editor of this very paper, The Griffin, and that's the debate we're about to go into. So, over to Becca.
Hello everyone watching. So this is the debate for the Griffin. So I'm Becca, I'm moderating the debate today, and we have Ed and Ian who are both running to be the editor of the Griffin. So I'm going to give them 30 seconds to start now to give you an opening statement so that you know what they're about. So I'll go to Ed first.
So my name's Ed. I've been a part of the Griffin for about a year now. So I started off as a writer, and then I really enjoyed it, and I found it really easy to write for. So then I became an editor, and honestly, that has been like probably the thing that I've enjoyed most about uni, more than my entire course. And so I'd really hope to do it next year. I really love being in Leeds, and yeah. So I'll explain more.
And Ian.
All right, I'm Ian. I've been involved with the Griffin for about 3 years, writing, editing for a couple of years. It's been a fantastic experience, one of the best things about being in uni, like Ed said. I think in our age of fake news and disinformation, having an independent, student-run newspaper is something that's really important and really valuable. I've got big plans to improve it. I'll go over them in more detail later, so that's it.
Okay, so we're going to go for the first question now. So, in your recent editorials for the Griffin, both of you have mentioned that the Griffin, Ed, you said, should always represent the student body, and Ian said the Griffin should be a platform for all students. Would this policy extend to those who hold extreme or prejudiced views, and how would you ensure the Griffin isn't complicit in spreading hateful opinions? We'll go to Ian first.
Okay, so I think that it's a job of the editor to differentiate between arguments that they may disagree with but are legitimate and arguments that are just wholly illegitimate and just plain wrong. I think if an article's well argued and it's well written, then it has a place for in the Griffin, but those sorts of prejudiced, hateful views, it's impossible to write a well-argued, well-reasoned article about them because they're just plain wrong, they're unacceptable. And that's not the sort of thing that I'd like to see published in the Griffin if I was editor. And I think it's just about common sense, really. I mean, as a news editor and as an associate, I've never had a time where someone's come up with me an article that's, I've thought, oh, that's not really acceptable. So I think that, but if they did, then I think it's down to the common sense and the judgment of the editor, and I think I've got that.
Okay, and Ed?
So I think that everyone has a right to an opinion, but no one has a right to ignorance, and I think that that is one thing that the Griffin would definitely have to consider, and also as well that no one should be, you know, if we're looking at an article that's dealing with a controversial subject, we should look at whether or not they're like trying to deliberately alienate or antagonize that specific group of people. You know, obviously, like in the past, you know, the Griffin interviewed like Nick Griffin, and he said some controversial comments about LGBT people. And you know, what I think is important is challenging people on those opinions and offering a voice as well to the other side and to say why those opinions are so wrong. And so, yeah, I think the Griffin with anything would also have to consider whether or not it would affect the reputation of the Griffin. Yeah, I think that's...
So if someone was to say, give you an article that had these kind of opinions, would your approach be to speak to the writer and challenge the opinion in person, or to just stop the article being published?
I think I would definitely engage with the writer, be like, what is your intention here, and try and see what their reasoning behind the article is. Obviously, if I thought they were seeking to deliberately attack a certain group of students, then obviously I would think that the article should not be published. If that wasn't the case, then I would seek to reach out to students of that, you know, specific community, whether or not it's BME communities or the LGBT community, and you know, offer them a challenge to that.
So in your common sense approach into when you're looking at articles and saying, actually, that's not right, would you do the same thing? Would you challenge them in person, or would you just not publish the article? What would your approach be on this?
I think it's difficult because everyone are entitled to their opinions, and there's articles that I've read in the Griffin I've edited that I've thought that I completely disagree with that, but that still is a legitimate opinion. And then there are other opinions that you think, well, that's just plain unacceptable, we can't publish that in the Griffin. And I think if people do sort of submit those articles thinking that's acceptable, then I think the editors should maybe sit down with them and just explain to them why we won't have that in the Griffin. Because it's about people who write for us do appreciate feedback. And if someone sends an article and it's just unacceptable and they never hear from us again, I think it'd be much better to sit down with them and try to explain why those views aren't acceptable. And if we can change someone's mind, I mean, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? It's not necessarily the job of the Griffin editor to do that in that sort of context, but if you can, then that would be some progress, I suppose.
So we've touched on, obviously, controversial issues, but what would you do as editor to ensure diversity and your writers to ensure diversity of issues and publishing to ensure that, you know, we're not allowing maybe no platforming, or how would you address the no platforming issue, but then ensure diversity in female, LGBT and BME stories to ensure we appeal to the wider members of the Leeds community and to ensure that everyone gets a platform, even if they hold views that are maybe not acceptable, but the views that need to be reached out to? Ed, we'll start with you.
So the issue of representation and diversity is something that's very personal to me as a gay man who grew up in the country, who didn't see a lot of myself represented in the media, and so that made me feel very isolated. However, I am also very privileged, but I do understand why representation is such an important issue. So several things that I want to do to go about that is I want to work with the Equality and Diversity Officer to help reach out to different communities across campus. As well, what I think would be really important is to do collaborations with minority media like On Beat and give them a platform, and also do workshops for BME writers. And also another thing as well is, also lobby the uni as well to allow international students to run for editor. I think that would be really good to encouraging international students to also be part of the Griffin.
Okay, Ian?
Yeah, building on what Ed's just said, I think that lots of people can get really nervous about writing for the Griffin or editing it. I think it can be a little bit intimidating walking into your first writers' meeting. I think we need to have a more relaxed ethos, but I don't think an open door is necessarily enough. I think we need to be proactive, and we need to build relationships with campaigning societies, international student societies, sort of other media societies like LUU. We need to get the message across that the Griffin isn't this exclusive club. It's an open platform for all students to express what matters to them. I think if we have more diverse writers, that means we'll get more diverse editors. That means we get more diverse content, and that's only good news for the Griffin because people don't want to be reading the same thing week in, week out. A couple of other ideas I had, we could, to just show how inclusive we are, we could have on the top banner of the front page have information about how you can write for the Griffin. And I also thought for international students we could publish articles in a foreign language. Maybe difficult to edit, but I think we found a way around that.
So you've both spoken about reaching out to different groups, reaching out to different people. One thing that's very important in Leeds University Union is the relationship between the Griffin, LSTV and LSR. Now everyone watching at home is watching on LSTV right now. So what would you do to achieve stronger relationships between the Griffin, LSTV and LSR? Ian, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, we are just over the hallway from each other, but we don't always talk to each other all that much. And I think that's something we need to look at, just try and build those personal relationships between the head of the Griffin, the head of LSTV, the head of LSR. We have to do more to sort of run joint events. We've done things before, like a US election, that was a while ago, I know that. But we have our own radio show on the LSR, that's been really successful. So do more of those joint events where we all try and cover the same thing and get together to try and really spotlight on something specific.
Ed?
So kind of building on what Ian said, I really want to do more collaborations with LSR and LSTV because I think that would make the Griffin much more exciting to be part of. Like speaking to a lot of people, they've said that if they saw video reporting about what's going on in Leeds, they'd be much more likely to respond to that than, say, an article. So obviously when there are events going on like the recent climate change protests that happened last weekend, or even just general things going on campus, If the Griffin was able to put out a short video collaborating with LSTV on that one, just detailing what happened, and so like students would also find another medium to stay informed. And also as well, I think podcasts, some people, might not be willing to read an article, but listening to it, they might be more willing to do that. And so I feel like that would also help us engage with the other media societies a lot more. And obviously I talked about OnBeat earlier in terms of representation and diversity.
So what I'm hearing both is with the development of the relationship with LSTV and LSR, it is the core of an online presence. And both of you have spoken about developing the Griffin's online presence in your manifestos. But given the majority of the Griffin's readers read the paper in the physical form, across the union, picked up on little distribution slots, but relatively few people are interacting with it online. How do you plan to increase the traffic to the Griffin website through maybe relationships with LSR or without using LSTV and LSR on your own? And how will you ensure the Griffin as a physical paper does not suffer from this? Ed, we'll start with you.
So I think that one thing I think we should better tie online and print content together. So spotlighting each week, make sure that we're spotlighting what articles appear in print, also for each individual section. As well, I think what would really make people engage online would be for the Griffin to become the go-to news source for Leeds students. I think that's one thing that the Leeds is a bit behind at the moment. We're not as fast at the tab, and so then that means people are finding out about things second to us, which means if we get things out first, people are going to engage with that a lot more. And if they see the Griffin as something where they can get accurate, breaking, just short pieces, just telling them what's going on in Hyde Park, if something's happened in Hyde Park or on campus, so they can be aware of what's going on around them. And I think that would make them engage a lot more. I also want to introduce adverts on the website to also generate more revenue, which would also help us reach out, I think, to expand our online presence.
Okay, Ian?
I think in the past, the Griffin has sometimes been seen or is operated as a newspaper that also happens to do a bit of online, sort of on the side. I think that's been changing recently. We've got a brand new website that looks brilliant, but people won't visit that new website unless they're directed to it by social media. So I'd like our social media to really improve. I think I'd like to put individual people in charge of our Instagram and our Twitter accounts, so you sort of get that they can really stamp their personalities on those accounts to try and develop a bit more of a sort of following. But of course, we shouldn't neglect the print side of the paper, which is still really important. The two should run sort of simultaneously. I mean, my experience has mostly been with print during the past 2 years. And I think I've seen that sort of switching from a weekly to once every 2 weeks, I think that's really helped us to improve the quality of our content and make a more polished product. And I also quite enjoy it when we've run themed weeks like Black History Month or LGBT History Month. That's been quite good to have a thread that runs through the whole paper that makes it a bit more readable.
So what is the most pressing issue you believe is facing the Griffin today? Ian?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think it's trying to, if I don't repeat myself, but I think it's trying to find a way to incorporate the new technologies of social media and the internet with the very old technologies of the printed word, because when the new technology comes along, people always think, oh, well, that's the end for the old technology. But in fact, I think the new technology can often find out a new niche for itself. So I think if we don't see social media and the internet as a threat, if we see it more as an opportunity, I think that's a way we can sort of transform what potentially is an issue for the Griffin into a much more positive thing.
Okay, Ed?
I think the most pressing issue that's facing the Griffin is proving why it's relevant to students. So obviously talking about news source, but also as well saying how it's a voice for students and really holding the university to account. I feel like we can do better on that, do more investigative journalism, say to students, there's an issue with your course, and then really, whether or not that's hidden costs, no contact hours, also expenses to placements for medic students and things like that, and really challenge the uni on that, and then that will make people see the Griffin as something that can represent them. Also as well, kind of going back on the diversity point as well, I think it's really important that we reach out to all of the communities across campus, and I think one of the ways that I would do that would be to have someone who is a member of BME communities, whose role would be to specifically reach out to those communities, which as a white man I cannot do, and I think that would be really important in engaging the many different types of students we have.
So drawing back to one of my first points that you both mentioned about representing and being a platform for all students, how would you ensure that the Griffin is approachable? So if people do have issues, how are you going to ensure that people are able to come and speak to the Griffin? How will the Griffin represent what people think and people's problems? Ed?
So I think the main thing would be reaching out to students, because obviously we're up on the upper floor of the uni and most people don't actually know we're there. So I feel like getting ourselves out there, going out and polling students, asking them what they think, also going to lectures, you know, not just at the beginning of the year but also throughout the year, just to remind people that if they're not happy with the way things are going, that they can come to us. And you know, I think that is a way that we can make ourselves much more approachable, is by really going out there and engaging with students.
Ian?
Yeah, people who write for the Griffin are probably the most important part of the Griffin. I mean, they don't get elected like we do, but I think they're probably the most important part. And one of my ideas on my manifesto to improve approachability is to run sort of skills workshops for writers, to equip them with the sort of the skills, the knowledge that they'll need to write articles for us, to improve the quality of the content that we produce. Because it can be really intimidating when you go into your first writers' meeting. It was when I did it 3 years ago. And you sit down and you don't know anyone. So I think this sort of, if editors can run these workshops for writers, they can get to know them a bit better, they'll feel more valued, and I think that'll be really useful for writers to feel that they have more access to the Griffin, and that the Griffin is something that gives something back to them. It doesn't just ask for their articles and ask for £10, and then if you're lucky you'll get printed. The Griffin's something that gives things back to its writers as well as just takes the articles.
So if we think about a year today, where do you see the Griffin? Ian?
I think I'd see the Griffin with... I think I'd see a Griffin that has a more sort of even presence across online and print. I think we've got 10,000 followers on Twitter, which is a massive sort of pool of people to access, and yet we tweet, you know, once every 2 weeks. So I think that we just need to keep pushing our sort of our content and our message, and hopefully this time next year, when I'm putting my banners up outside Edward Boyle, and someone says, "Oh, editor of what?" hopefully they'll know that it's editor of the Griffin, and people will be more aware of the Griffin because of the work that's been done over the past year.
Okay, Ed?
Yeah, I think kind of similar to what Ian said, I think I just would want to make sure that the Griffin is relevant to students and people see that, like, know why it's there. You know, I want to see us have an engaging social media so people see us as something to go to, whether that's, you know, for information that's going on around Leeds, or know that it's something that's sticking out for them. And also as well, just, you know, yeah, something that is, because I feel like at the moment people tend to read the paper when it's on campus, but they don't read it online. And, you know, so I really want to people to see both the paper and also online content as something that they're invested in and something that is relevant, I think, to all the students we have.
Okay, you've both given some brilliant answers there, so I'm going to give you both 30 seconds to give some closing statements and round up your campaign and show everyone why you should be voted for. So, Ed?
So I want to make the Griffin your go-to news source. You should be informed about what's going on around you, and I think that's really important. I think as well you should have something that is you know, representing you and really sticking out for you, whether or not that's the council to do with issues like student safety, or the uni, or the union even at that. You know, I want to see us have an engaging and interactive and dynamic online presence, and obviously a diverse writing and editorial body.
Okay, Ian?
Yeah, I want to run a Griffin that values its writers and its readers and sort of gives something back to them with skills workshops. And I want a Griffin that values the opportunities that the internet and that social media represents. And hopefully, if we improve the Griffin in these ways and sort of build on the progress that's been made by the past few editors, then the Griffin will be valued more and more by students, and I think that can only be a good thing.
Okay, so that rounds up our debate for who's going to be the Griffin editor. Thank you both for some great answers. Back to Sab.
Thank you very much, Becca. So that was, as Becca just said, the Griffin editor. Should we have a round of applause for those candidates? Thank you. Wonderful. So, of course, you can read their manifestos online at lu.org.uk. But the next debate that's going to be happening is the debate for welfare officer, and I'm joined by the current welfare officer, Matt. Hello.
Hello.
Earlier on, I interviewed Tom, the current community officer. The first question I asked him is going to be the same one. Can you sum up your role in one sentence?
It's just to represent students in all things to do with their happiness and healthiness. So wherever that pervades their university life, that's where I represent them.
Wonderful, thank you very much. So there are 9 people running for welfare officer this year. There are only going to be 7 in the debate. We'll explain a bit more about that later on. But how does that make you feel as the current one, the fact that there are 9 people running?
I think it's brilliant. I think it comes off the back of a growing conversation around mental health at universities, and it just shows that there's so many passionate people out there trying to do their bit to sort of contribute to that growing movement and kind of get more ideas, more student voice out there on it.
Wonderful. What would you say is your biggest achievement from this year?
I was really proud a few weeks ago when we finally installed free sanitary product dispensers into the toilets. You know, it's something that we've been doing in drips and drabs as the union for a while, but actually getting away that it's kind of sustainable, upkeepable, and you know, that's been really rewarding.
Wonderful. So this time last year, you were here in the same position as the candidates today. You also had a manifesto. Is it looking like you're going to be able to tick off everything on your manifesto?
I feel like I'm making good headway. So like I say, I've made good progress on free sanitary products, and I've been doing lots of work, working closely with the university and an external partner on sort of looking into student drug use. But as long as I've opened that conversation by the end of the year, I think I'll be happy.
Wonderful. And so finally, if you had one message for all the candidates running in this election, for any position, what would it be?
It'd be to just give it your all. Have a good time, give it your all, and, you know, you'll do a good job.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Matt. So we'll be coming to that debate with 7 people in a few minutes. Okay, so thank you. Welcome back to Lead LUU Live, brought to you by Leeds Student Television and Leeds Student Radio. So the next category, the next candidate that we're debating is the candidates for the role of welfare officer. We're a bit late coming to this one, and there's a reason for that, and Tamsin is here to explain why.
Hello. So essentially, what has happened is this event is being held in the only inaccessible space in the union, and I just think it's absolutely ridiculous that we're holding one of the key events for Lead LUU in a space that is prioritised over the way that it looks over the access to candidates. I think the fact that people have been not able to access this space and thus have felt like their part of the debate is worth less than the people who are able to access this space. That is not the priorities that we should be having, and I think we need to admit that we've done something wrong and that something definitely needs to change in Lead LUU. And it shouldn't take someone not being able to access the venue for us to realise it's inaccessible. I think this is the exact reason why we've got to do better and why we've got to listen to people instead of just making assumptions for people. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say, is just essentially we're not doing a good enough job of making our union accessible to everyone, and we really need to try harder.
Thank you very much, Tamsin. So that's an example of something which is going to change in the union, hopefully. And the way to make change in the union is to be part of the exec. That's one of the ways to make a change. And so let's get back to the debate for the role of welfare officer.
To our panel of candidates running for welfare officer. So we've actually got one candidate who couldn't make it today, so we've got a friend standing in place. We're all going to do a 30-second opening statement, but Olga has sent in a little video. So if you just introduce yourself, then we'll go to Olga.
Yeah, my name is Bethana. I'm just standing in on behalf of Olga today.
Hi everyone, I'm Olga Bogdu, also known as Ollie. Sorry I couldn't be there today, I'm away with my family, but I hope everyone does really, really well and the debate is really interesting and really informative. Just to remind everyone, my main manifesto points are equal support for all students, managing finance, and mental and sexual health, which are very, very important issues. So yeah, be the best you can be with Ollie B and vote for me.
Okay, fantastic. That's from Olga, and her questions will be answered by a stand-in today. So we're going to go down and introduce ourselves, starting with Leo.
Hiya, I'm Leo. I use they, them pronouns. My 3 main manifesto points are about unifying mental health services to improve communication between the 4 services that exist, put them in the same place. to make the union have an official policy on harm reduction, and to focus on survivors of sexual violence as well as prevention against sexual violence. Is that time? No, okay. Also, I'm the Welfare Officer for Comedy Society, I'm the E&D for LGBT Society, and I'm the LUU Trans Liberation Coordinator.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm Hannah, and I'm a second-year English literature student. I'm running for the Welfare Officer because I've attempted to campaign for better mental health services in the university in the past, and I've ran so I can stop asking others to make the change and try and give it a go myself. I want to focus on what we can do now. I think it takes a lot for people to reach out, so I want to prevent the information to students, integrate it within timetables to remove the hurdle of having to look for it when you need it the most.
Hi, I'm Ella, and I'm a second-year student studying politics and economics. I'm running for Welfare Officer because over the last 2 years I've been on a journey that's taken me from absolutely hating life at uni and wanting to drop out to it's been completely transformed, and I've absolutely loved my life here now. And that is all down to things that I've done within the union, especially getting involved in societies such as the Boat Club and Amnesty International.
Thank you very much. On to Kaya.
Hello, my name's Kaya. I'm a fifth year studying Chinese and Russian, and my main manifesto points include introducing a welfare bursary for students to be able to access therapy. It also includes helping international students, putting more attention on them for their mental health well-being, and finally, preparing students who go on years abroad in the university.
Fantastic.
All right, my name is Aubrey Gonzalez. My main point is to increase male mental health awareness through sporting. I have a reset button, which is simply having more dogs on campus, and redesigning the refectory food at the university to make it into more cultural diversity. Welfare needs to start with what we can take control, by starting with what we often miss the most, which is our pets and our comfort foods. We now come to university, and students try new things, like sports. So let's increase mental health awareness in sports.
That's great. And Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy. Is this microphone working? Yes. I'm a fourth year zoology student, and I'm running to be an ex-welfare officer because my life already revolves around student welfare and I love it. So I work on the LUU help desk and the advice team. I'm the support coordinator for the Leeds branch of the national charity Leeds Nightline, not Leeds Nightline, the Leeds branch. I'm welfare publicity officer for Mind Matters, and my year in industry was managing a student support project for PhD students in STEM faculties. So I have experience in both the union and the university.
That's great. And finally?
Hi, I'm Nati Figueredo, and I chose to run for welfare officer because I want to focus on things that I struggle myself and see people I love struggle with. So, yes, I've been lucky enough to meet amazing human beings that have helped me overcome things like loneliness, bad relationships with food, and my aim is to decrease that lack factor and increase opportunities because everyone deserves to overcome things like that. So, yes.
Right, that's fantastic. So we're going to start one down. So we'll start with you, Leo. The question is, so I want you to picture the University of Leeds in 2025. And how does student support look then? And what's it different from now?
In 2025, I want our mental health and welfare systems to be integrated and unified. So every student on campus knows there's one place they can go to receive support. Every society has a welfare officer who works closely with each other in a network and with the wellbeing service, ensuring that welfare unites all of LUU and everyone knows where they can turn to. I don't want any student to feel trapped to feel like they have to pick between support for safe drug use and their university career, which is how a lot of us feel right now. And I don't want any student running in any election to be made to feel like an inconvenience, an oversight, or on less of a par than other candidates because of their disability.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
I think that welfare should be a part of our timetables, and I think a way to get everyone involved with their courses and different subjects is to have this information presented to you. It should be immediately given to us when we get to university, so you know exactly where to go. Yeah, I also think that there should be more careers appointments, because one of the biggest worries when you come to uni is what's going to happen after, and at the moment I think the service there is insufficient, so that should be addressed.
In 2025, I'd like to see a mental health support system that reaches out to students. I think at the moment there are too many barriers for people to access the services. I'd also like to think that the student body knows how to reach out and help others that might be struggling. I think people don't really know how to help others, and I'd like to see a union where everyone feels welcome, especially within sports societies.
I just want to say I totally agree with everything my fellow candidates have just said. To add on to that, I want Leeds to be a place where everyone can afford therapy, regardless of their socioeconomic background, regardless of their ethnicity, anything like that. I want them to be able to afford therapy and for it to be a safer, healthier environment. And a place where international students and national students to come and to integrate together and for there to be more support for everyone.
In 2025, it'd be amazing to have LUU as the #1 student union in the UK, following it through with welfare. I feel we could create the first student-led wellness program through all the societies. I feel through the societies people can learn a lot of their own experiences. They can try out something new, they can learn from themselves, and they can open conversation with issues that they have.
Go ahead.
Yeah, all good points, obviously, but by 2025, I'd really like to see unification between the mental health team that we have on campus, the Student Counselling and Wellbeing Centre, in-school pastoral support, and the support that's on offer here at LUU. It is chronically underfunded and understaffed, and it's doing a massive disservice to students. It should be a priority for the university. Especially in first year, you're completely overwhelmed when you arrive in Leeds. You are not able to find out loads of different information for yourself. It really needs to be clearly signposted when you arrive in Leeds.
Wonderful, thank you.
By 2025, I would like to see a society of thinkers, and by this I mean that I'm a strong believer that we possess the resources to overcome anything. However, it is up to us to believe about this, so I think the resources should focus on making us know and attain this self-knowledge to then face whatever adverse situations life brings us. That's why I'm focusing on workshops and things that teach us to overcome things by ourselves, by also having a strong network of support.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. We're going to hop one down again. So tell me, how does your manifesto support students from a diverse range of backgrounds?
My manifesto...
I'm so sorry. That was my bad. We're going to go to Olga.
So I'm just going to read some of Olga's answers for this question. So in 2025, the support system will include better access to mental health facilities for all students with no preferential treatment. Stigma around male mental health will die down, and male students are able to talk about their feelings. There is also support for friends, carers, significant others of people who have suffered whilst at university because they also suffer by extension. And yeah, it's just about extending sort of welfare provision for all students.
Thank you very much, and sorry again. Wow. I'll repeat that question. So tell me, how does your manifesto support students from a diverse range of backgrounds?
My manifesto aims at looking across all the schools at the university. At the moment, I think there's a lack of consistency between what different subjects offer, and I think it's really unfair that, say, some subjects have specific pastoral care and others don't. I think as well, as a student who, if they were coming from a year abroad or internationally, if this was integrated into our timetables, that information would be presented to them and they wouldn't have to look for it, and I think that should be equal regardless of what you're studying.
I think this is a really interesting question because realistically it's an impossible job to ask one person to represent everyone from all different backgrounds, but I'd like to focus on communication and collaboration between all the channels available to the union, such as social media and society committees, to listen to what students want from different backgrounds. Obviously, I don't know what is going on in students' lives that come from a different background to me, but yeah, that's what I'd like to focus on.
Well, like I said earlier, one of my main manifesto points is making sure that international students get more support when it comes to their mental health. And so the reason why I want to do this is because obviously there's 9,000 students at Leeds who are international students, and they get overlooked. And I think that they need more attention, they need more support, especially when it comes to their mental health, especially when they come from countries where that's a stigma, that's a taboo, that's something that's not spoken about. And we need to put more effort into that by making sure that they know what's going on at the university and what's available.
I feel to support people from different backgrounds, we need some transparency in what we can actually offer at the LUU. I feel just coming together as all the welfare societies, we need to create some sort of an umbrella so people can interact with one another, different societies can collaborate, and from our manifesto, the 3 points are open to everyone. People can join sports, people enjoy food, and people enjoy their pets. So I feel it's one of those aspects that they enjoy. But yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
So I'm a female student, I'm a member of the LGBT community, and from a lower class background, so kind of understand how important it is to automatically include all marginalised groups in my manifesto points, and it's a lot easier than people think. It's about listening to student groups, it's about actually reaching out and finding out what they want, and if you're approachable with that, it is a lot easier. I worked with a lot of mature international part-time students with my PhD student support project. I had training in unconscious bias and global English and things like that, and I really want to use these skills in the welfare officer role to make sure that all of my points include all types of student groups.
I agree with what Amy just stated. I think one of the problems that we face is that we feel that we need to fit into a category, but I think of people as human beings, and the minute that I realize that we are all the same, I think if we approach welfare from a holistic perspective, it is quite easy to target everyone and be inclusive with that. That's why I'm focusing on areas that I think everyone suffers with and could be improved, such as mental health, physical health, and sexual health. So that's why.
Okay, we're going to come back down the table.
Yes, so Olga's manifesto appeals to students from a variety of backgrounds. She wants to make sure all students have equal and no preferential treatment to access to facilities. I'm reading this straight from her answer. So Olga says, as a straight white female, I can't say that I can directly relate to the problems and issue members of the LGBTQ community have to deal with, or the racism that certain students face, but I can easily say that I will try my absolute best to be able to provide the best support and make the most adequate changes for students from every walk of life.
Thank you very much. And finally?
I think sometimes with stuff like this, it's better to look at the specifics first rather than trying to apply like a vague concept to barriers that need to be broken down as soon as possible. So with sexual violence, the mandatory training at the moment doesn't include barely any examples of kind of non-standard sexual violence. I'm talking about male victims, people who experience sexual violence in queer relationships, and disabled people who are at higher risk of intimate partner violence. So bringing that into the first disclosure training will do a lot to fix a system that at the moment is currently broken. Also, I think when we think about harm reduction, the reason it's so important is that students of colour and international students are much more likely to face harmful consequences from a zero-tolerance drugs policy, which is why I think it's so important to start there, so everyone has the same basis to access university.
Thank you very much. So we're going to move on to our next question now. You may have seen recently in the union they added free contraception by the officers. So what are you going to do to improve sexual health and contraception facilities on campus?
So I think the main issue with what we have at the moment is that very few students are aware of the help and support that is available at LUU. So I'd like to increase the availability of it to start with, but also make sure students are aware of what's going on and reach out to them and let them know what's going on and the help that they can get.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Ella just said. That's such a good point. Students don't know what's available, and I think that's even more prevalent with international students, as I mentioned earlier, like a lot of the things they're unaware of. And I still think in England or in the United Kingdom there is this taboo still of, you know, sexual health, things like that. We need to create an environment where people are comfortable to speak about it without feeling judged, without feeling like they're not allowed to say certain things because of who they are. And I think we just need to create a safer environment, and that could be through talks, lectures, debates, things like that. Just, yeah, spreading the word.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think having the right platform to kind of portray the information that the LUU can offer will be one of the main strategies to get everyone involved in what is happening on a day-to-day basis. So a new policy coming in of allowing these free sanitary products, I speak to people, yet they don't know about it. And then once they get exposed, it's a word of mouth, and everything kind of flows a lot better. But it's the initiation of connecting with the right people at the right time with the right platform.
I think it's really important to push getting this available contraception and sanitary products across campus. So the footfall in the union is not actually that high. We have like 35,000 students. Not that many people go to the level 2 floor of the union. We really need to be focusing on lobbying the university to provide those things in key points around campus. And also there's still obviously quite a lot of shame and embarrassment around these things. So while we need to work to reduce the stigma, we also need to provide free contraception and free sanitary products in a way that people can access them without feeling like they're being watched. So the the condoms on level 2 outside the exec office, it's not really a private place. You're going to be seen if you've got it, if you're going to get it. So yeah, maybe in more private places.
Thank you. On to Natalie.
Yeah, as Aubrey was saying, I think it is a thing of communication here. I think people don't get involved because they don't think it is important or because they don't think they need it. I think by increasing the communication of the benefits and by, as Amy said, doing it in a way that endorses everyone's personality, cultural beliefs, and so on, I think that would definitely promote and increase the benefits of providing this sort of resources.
Thank you.
Yes, so promoting sexual health by organising events and workshops to inform students about sexual health, as well as free STI and HIV self-testing kits provided in the union, on top of continuing the sanitary products and condoms that are already available.
I think working with already existing service providers would be great. So an event that was really awesome last year was You Stop AIDS did some safer sex packing. Mesmac, which is a queer charity in town, offers little packs that have 2 condoms, 2 sachets of lube in them, and you kind of put them together in a little envelope. Loads of people came. We had really open and honest chats, and I think it's really important to have that level of human connection that makes it just seem like a normal thing everyone can do. And I think next year's exec will really be on the forefront of making it a topic that's not stigmatized around campus anymore. And also getting people in from Mesmac to do HIV and STI testing is something that we've been doing recently, but again, not a lot of people know about it. They were there for 2 hours and only a handful of people came, so I think putting that all across campus instead of just in the union, as others have said, would be really important.
Thank you.
From a practical perspective, I think continuation is a really important policy, and I know Matt started a lot of things, and a year is actually not a lot of time to make policy. So to continue to make free tampons and condoms available is really important, and to make it more accessible, like Amy said, the only time I've seen it is outside the rep office, and a lot of students don't go there, so it needs to be a lot more open. Also in terms of contraception, we need specific information, some pharmacies charge for the pill and some don't, and in terms of that should be available for students straight away.
Please. Oh, wow. Again, I'm just getting too involved in the issues. Okay, so we're going to start with you, Kaya. Tell me, what does welfare mean to you?
Okay, that's quite a big question, but I think, welfare to me is making sure that every student is okay. To put it simply, are they okay? Do they feel content? Do they feel relaxed, happy? University is a very stressful time. University isn't a breeze. And we have to make sure that all our students are feeling okay mentally, physically, emotionally, and making sure that everyone feels happy being at university to the most extent that we can.
I agree. I think it's about happiness. It's about what you enjoy. When you're feeling stressed, is being or having the right area where you can go and speak about these issues. Welfare may not be easy for everyone to kind of get their head around, but by being open about how you feel, opening conversation is key, and welfare is just communication of how you are.
For me, welfare obviously encompasses kind of social, physical, emotional health, comfort and security. And I think it needs to be valued so much more by the university, because without a solid base of kind of good welfare, you can't succeed in a really demanding degree program. You just can't. You can't engage with it fully, and you're going to be putting yourself under so much stress. Whereas if we give people the tools to improve their own well-being, then they're setting themselves up for so much more success, and that's why the university should care about it, because the university wants successful students, it wants good rankings, it needs to care about student well-being.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, as Kaya said, it is a big question because literally there's so many interpretations, but the way I interpret it is related to feeling happy, but not in the classical way of like, I'm so happy. No, literally feeling content with who you are as a person and what you're investing, your genuine self on your daily choices. I think many people get to their houses at the end of the day and are like, oh, I didn't have a good day, I wasn't productive. It's not really about that. I think it's really about sitting down and being like, right, was I genuine to myself? Did every choice was, I don't know, mindful? I think it's about that, really.
Yeah, so similar things to what a lot of the other candidates have said. Just general contentment, well-being, safety, health, those kinds of things. And they all work together, I guess, under the umbrella term of welfare.
Personally, for me, welfare means my friends. This time last year, I was having quite a bad time, and it was my mates that pulled me out of it and kept me going till I could get some help. And so to apply that more broadly to the whole union, welfare means having that sense of community, and it means having a group of people that you aren't afraid to open up to. And it means that we all work together to make a system that works for us. Welfare doesn't look the same on any same campus because every union is made up of different people, and welfare needs to be accommodating of that. It needs to be accommodating of diversity and everyone's needs and what everyone wants out of a welfare system.
I think welfare is about feeling acknowledged and appreciated every day, and not just on your bad days. You should feel like you're a part of a community at university. You shouldn't feel isolated. I think it's quite easy to feel, for university to feel a bit demoralising and having a bit of a lack of direction. But it's really important to know that you're not on your own, and we actually all kind of feel the same. I think that really needs to be stressed, and in terms of my policies, I think that's what I'm striving for. Yeah.
For me, welfare is about using my own experience to help others feel good about themselves. And as I mentioned earlier, I've been on a steep upward journey with my experience of uni so far. For me, that was getting involved in societies, especially with the boat club. And obviously I recognise that not everyone is the same, but I know that there are so many social barriers and financial barriers to joining sports societies. Particularly, people don't feel like they're good enough or athletic enough to join sports, and that's something I'd really like to challenge. And just sport, for me, sport's been amazing at improving my mental health, and just making sure everyone feels welcome. So encouraging participation in sport. You don't have to be the perfect athlete to get involved and have a good time, and yeah, removing the financial barriers to these.
That's fantastic. Okay, so we're going to end with our final question, starting over here. So many people talk about mental health, but what concrete steps will you be putting in place to actually improve the mental health and well-being of students on campus and around the city?
Okay, I am the first one to speak about this.
It's a big duty.
Really, it's just about being proactive. Students, we can take control of a lot of things. Our welfare should be the priority. Just finding ways and how we can do that is through collaboration. Collaborating how we can improve, how we can express how we feel, and having that interaction with one another.
I would start by trying to immediately forge really strong connections with the staff that lead obviously the mental health team, student counselling and wellbeing, and the LUU teams, and then focus on lobbying the university to improve in-school pastoral support and really look at connecting these, so bringing together people from all of those organisations into one place, looking at how we can make the first steps to really like change the system, change the way we do it, see what's realistic, and use kind of strategic lobbying to make the university care. I mean, it's our funding at the end of the day, so yeah, lobbying is very important.
Lovely.
Yeah, as Amy said, I think an important thing is redirecting the funds into things that are already existent. However, they need to be strengthened. There's like the demand and the offer is not balanced at all, and that shouldn't be the case. So I think we should restate our priorities and realize what is important based on how students are feeling and the real picture out there, not what we think is happening and how we think things could or could not work. I think it has to be realistic and genuine for it to be fruitful.
Yeah, so practical steps forward. Basically promoting the existing services, workshops and drop-in sessions, but also adding to that major events, as well as workshops about erasing stigmas around mental health, guest speakers, just communication. So I guess almost like restarting the conversation all over again, and trying to get everyone on board in that sense.
So my key point is to unify the mental health services, and what I mean by that is that at the moment there's like 3 or 4 different services that deal with different aspects of mental health, and they're all across campus, like physically in different places, and that means that the communication between the teams is really, really bad. And what happens there is if you're a student who's in crisis, you don't know where to go, you have to be the one to chase up the referral because it doesn't get across. And students slip between cracks in provision every day, and that's the massive problem. So what I want to make steps towards, if I were to be voted in, would be to have a single building where all mental health services would be, because that would improve communication, and it would mean that everyone knows where to go if they're having a problem, and they know that they can go there and get the support they need and not just be sent around everywhere all the time.
I really want to introduce mental health first aid lectures into our timetables. I think having access to this information is essential in enabling people to help themselves and make those first steps in being proactive with their mental health. The information should be transparent about what exists currently. If there's a 3 to 4 week waiting time for counselling sessions, we should know so we can accommodate to what we need right now and address it straight away. I also think we need to look at the lack of contact hours in some subjects because there is a direct cause of isolation for a lot of people. And I want to introduce workshops to create a sense of community and really enable people to have that full university experience.
Thank you.
So I have 3 main actions that I'd like to carry out regarding mental health. The first of these is to collaborate with Leeds Student Minds, which is a fantastic charity to provide committee training for all society members. We've had it on Boat Club Committee and we found it really helpful, and I think that's something I'd like to roll out to all societies. The second is to review the university's mental health protocols and see how and where we can improve these. I think they need to become more interventionist. They need to reach out to students before they reach crisis point. And the third is to make sure we are more inclusive as a union and more students feel they can get involved. My main point for this is to introduce more frequent non-alcoholic socials. I think so many students miss out on the social side of uni because they don't drink, so they don't get the chance to socialise as much.
Thank you. And finally?
My main concrete point of helping mental health access is by, like I mentioned earlier, introducing this welfare bursary, which will allow students to get therapy. There are too many students now at university who can't get therapy. They have mental health issues, they need support, they can't get it because they don't have the funds. And I think that we should help them. Obviously, this is a big issue. They need support, they need help, and I know that I will be able to do that by introducing this bursary. In addition to that, I think that I can then find the cracks in the system in terms of university life, find the key stressful points, and work with students in a way that will make their lives easier.
That's great. Thank you very much, everyone. We're just going to finish off now. We're going to have 30 seconds for a closing statement, summarise whatever you think is most important. We're going to start with Amy.
So the thing that motivated me to run for this role, I've had my own experience with mental health, but it's the sheer scale of the crisis in student mental health that I see from my volunteering work and my work with student advice. I just think that promoting the existing services is not enough because they are so oversubscribed that they cannot physically provide the help that people need. I want to use my experience, my contacts and my genuine passion to fix the system as much as we possibly can.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, so I got involved in this because I found myself blaming a lot of the system and authorities that I thought governed me. However, I realized that I am part of that, and the minute that we realize that we have the power and potentially the energy to invest in this sort of things, which are important, I don't see why I wouldn't be doing this with my time. And again, I think by approaching the issues from a holistic perspective, it does promise a lot for students and their well-being. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, just to close, some things that Olga wants to focus on that I haven't really mentioned around the financial side. So offering affordably priced products within the union and support and guidance to prepare students for life after university, as well as just her main focus is really about equal support, equal pastoral support for study, work abroad, placement year students, postgrads, and designated safe spaces as well.
Thank you.
So my personal little welfare journey started when I created the welfare officer position for Comedy Society, and everyone was so excited about it. And now there are loads of societies that are getting in touch. Well, not loads, like two, but loads of societies that are getting in touch and asking me to help them do it. And what it made me realise is that there's so much momentum behind campaigning for welfare at this university, and it's something that most students seem to be united on. And what I really hope to be able to do is give a direction to that momentum and take concrete steps towards making welfare here better.
I think in regards to my own policies, a lot of them sound like common sense and sound like things that should already exist. And I know at some other universities they actually do. So I think from my own perspective, I'm a bit confused as to why we don't have these things in place. If 1 in 4 students suffer from mental health, it's not you, it's your friends, and we should know where to go and how to look after yourself and your peers. I think it's really important in empowering students.
Thank you.
So my main motivation as a welfare officer would be to expand and increase the mental health services that are available. I'd like to find a way to provide more interventionist protocols to help as many students as we can before they reach that breaking point. And I'd like to make our union more inclusive, make sure everyone feels welcome. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So the main reason I'm running for welfare and I've gone for this role is because the things that I'm campaigning for I have had first-hand experience with. I know what the mental health support services are like at the university. I know that it needs improving. I know that we need more. I know what it's like to be an international student. I spent 2 out of my 5 years at university abroad, so I know exactly what that's like. I know the struggles. I have many international friends here at university, and I know what it's like to go on a year abroad. I know the struggles that all the students face in this kind of way.
Thanks.
And my main motivations to become the welfare officer is to really just open conversation with everyone. As simple as it sounds, just having someone to speak about your own issues is the priority, and it should be welcomed into the LUU just through the right platform. Enjoying your time at the university requires a lot of your own time, requires a lot of focus to pass everything, and welfare should be a part of your life. We just got to elaborate a little bit more and just enjoy university.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. These have been your candidates for the welfare position, and we're going to pass you back over to Seb now.
Thank you very much, Amy, and thank you to all of the candidates for welfare officer. That was a very, lots of candidates there. So actually a big well done to Amy as well, because I don't think I would have been able to handle 8 people all at the same time. But I have got one person here, and that is Charlie Strang. And Charlie, you're here to tell us all about how we vote, because we're all debating here. But what really matters is voting next week.
So voting opens next week on Monday the 25th and it closes on Thursday the 28th at 5 p.m. So make sure you get your votes in before then, otherwise it won't count after. So where can you vote? So you can vote online, very easy way to do it. You can go on the LUU website and it will be really clearly posted there. And the system that we do is an alternative voting system. So rather than just voting for your main candidate that you want, you get all the candidates up and you number them 1 to 5 or 1 to 8 in this case. This is a really good way of doing it because it means that your vote actually counts and you're more likely to see who you want up on the roll. Yeah, there we go. And also, apart from voting online, you can vote in Common Ground and the foyer in voting booths, which are a bit professional, isn't it?
Very nice, very exciting. So just a reminder of when voting opens and closes?
On Monday the 25th and closes on Thursday the 28th at 5 p.m.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Charlie. So the next debate we're going to come to is the debate for candidates of welfare education officer. So we'll be coming to that in just a few minutes. Hello and welcome back to Lead LUU Live 2019. So we've had 4 of the 7 debates, so we've got 3 left, we're more than halfway through. The next one is the education debate, and I'm joined now by Serene, who's the current education officer. So I've spoken to Tom earlier on and Matt for community and welfare. Could you, the first question I asked them, sum up your role in 1 sentence?
Making sure that student voice is heard at every level across the university.
Perfect, thank you very much. And so what have you achieved this year? What's been your biggest achievement?
I think the biggest achievement has been re-evaluating the way we look at module feedback. So we've been piloting a completely new method in a couple of schools across the institution, and hopefully next academic year it will roll out everywhere.
Perfect. So this time last year, you were in this position debating. So you had a manifesto last year. Have you achieved everything on that manifesto?
It's hard to say whether you've completely achieved everything because it's not just a tick box exercise. I think when you get into the role, you realise that there's a lot more to your manifesto points than you may have originally imagined. So I would say I was maybe 70% of the way done with a lot of them, but I couldn't say that I'd completed any of them.
Wonderful. So if you had one message for all of the candidates running today for any role, what would that message be?
To be yourself. And I know that's really cheesy, but at the end of the day, people see through if you're not, so all you've got to go with is who you are and what you can bring to the table.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So without further ado, let's get to the debate for the role of education officer.
So here we are with our 7 candidates. Julian, would you like to start off with your 30-second introduction? Yeah, we're going to go down the line and everyone can just introduce themselves and say what they are for.
Yeah, definitely. Hello everyone, my name is Julian, the only Julian on campus, so that's why I'm Leeds University Julian. And I really hate running, but there are like some causes that you need to run for. And I'm running for education because I was really engaged with the campus and I managed to do some good works around. But I think there is always room for improvement, and I really want to change the methods of assessment because we learn in our very different way and we are all capable to do good things. So yeah, just look for me on Leeds University Julian. Thank you.
Yeah. Ethan, would you like to go?
Okay. Hello, I'm Ethan Liu, and I'm doing linguistics and ELT in the university. And I just want to introduce some main points of the manifesto, which is more online resources and more module feedback and effective RAP system, because I think it's really important for the university to hear from the students and provide a better environment for their education. Thank you.
Thank you. Abia?
Hi everyone, my name is Abiha Khan and I'm a 3rd year English literature student.
The main points of my manifesto are essentially working towards eliminating the barriers that stop you from achieving your highest grades or getting the educational experience that you're paying for. As a school rep, I've already researched what needs to be done at a higher institutional level, and I hope that one day I can achieve that for you all. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Hi, my name is Jun, and just to repeat Julian's words, I'm actually a men's captain of cross-country club, so I love running. Running for me is have a double sense here, so my slogan is Let Jun Run. I'm a second-year PhD student, have been previously studied in France, in Japan, and also been teaching for French Culture Center for different foreign students. The reason to being here as a potential education officer is try to not be the best of me, but to give everything I learned, I worked to serve the student here. So I can never ensure 38,000 students can all agree with me, but I will try to help each of them. Thank you.
Thank you. And Greg?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Greg. I'm a second-year biochemist. I'm also a mature student. And I'm campaigning for accessibility to everyone's education. I want to tackle hidden course costs, rethink the entire personal tutor system so it works for every single student, regardless of circumstances. I'd like to further inclusive education policies all across the university, and I'd like to continue the excellent work of the previous officer through optional module management. Thank you. Remember, vote Greg for Greducation.
Thank you very much. And Joe?
Hiya, my name is Joe. And I want to be your next education officer because I want to improve three main things which have been inspired either by my experience or my friend's experience, and those are accessibility, well-being, and clarity. And I hope that you can see today why you should go with Joe.
Amazing, thank you. And Bithana?
Hi, my name is Bithana. I am a final year geography student. I have been on a year abroad last year. I am also a school rep, and I am on the Wise My Curriculum White working group this year as well. My main manifesto points are about diversity, accessibility, and curriculum change.
Great, so now I'm going to start off by, we've got some questions for you. And we'll start with Ethan, and then we'll go down the line. We'll have 1 minute each. And our first question for you guys is, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing current students in Leeds?
Okay, I think now the biggest challenge for the students is that how they can take full use of the resources they can get to help with their study. I heard from my fellow students and some other friends in the university that, well, they can get copies from library, but limited numbers of them, and they can get the online resources like via LUU books, but also limited timing. Well, so they feel like it's not so efficient or effective with their study. So that's why I want to change that, because I think they're really important that they have efficient way with their studies, no matter with library resources or some module feedback from lecturers or interactions across the campus. So that's really important. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Abia, what do you think about the biggest challenge facing students today?
I think the biggest challenge facing students today is having the right set of skills and support to deal with the demands that university faces. One of my manifesto points is to reframe the provision of mental health. I think it's really important to see mental health as a life skill and not just something that you deal with when the going gets tough. And I think each academic year has its own demands, each school has its own demands, and that's why I want to bring in-house help to each school across the university so students get the support that is tailored to what they need.
Great, thank you. And Jane?
Well, for me, the question is a bit tricky because based on the conversations nowadays on campus, talking to different students, I find there's no a certain biggest challenge for students. It really depends on the individual. So one of the things I try to undertake to solve this problem is trying to build up a student-led network. It can be, if you ever heard about the Wikipedia or a Quora system, so lots of questions actually from the students already can be solved by the senior students who already experience this similar situation. So I just want to try to say, if we can have this system to build up, lots of questions and can be answered, can be handled by ourselves. You can save a lot of time and to focus on your own study or your research. And example from my school as a PGRs, sometimes I want to make a conference. There's so many things and from the bureaucracy and administration, I have no idea about it. So the point is, should I continue to focus to make the event happen or try to become a guy who knows how to work as an office person? So this student network is something I try to build up. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Greg, what do you think the biggest challenges facing students today in Leeds?
Well, when I became the school rep last year, I was a little bit confused at first because every single time I'd go for feedback or talk to individual students in my school, I could think, oh my God, this is so inconsistent. For example, the tutor system. The reason it's on my manifesto is because I've had a fantastic time with my tutor. I saw him every week in my first year, and whenever I need to talk to him, he's always available. Well, people on my own course that are my peers never get to see theirs. If you read my manifesto, the whole line about only knowing your student tutor for 20 minutes is completely true, and some people never get to see theirs. On top of that, modules. For example, some people don't get discovery modules whatsoever, but other people are swimming in optionals and discoveries, and that is ridiculous. This is a university with such good resources, and it should be more consistent across the entire experience. Thank you.
Thank you. And Joe, what do you think about the biggest challenges?
I would like to approach this question from a different perspective. As an international student, I think the biggest challenge that students that go to Leeds face is Brexit, and a fifth of our student body is made out of international students, be it like overseas students or EU students, but also international staff, and because of how diverse the staff is, this means that our university is a research-led institution, which what makes Leeds so special. But with Brexit, we will have less international students, less international staff, but also less funding for research. So everything is going to change, and that's why I think Brexit is one of the main issues that students here are facing.
Great, thank you. And Bethana, what do you think about biggest challenges facing students?
So for me, the biggest challenge facing students is the curriculum itself. I really strongly believe that the curriculum from the inside out needs changing. I just think there needs to be a lot more diversity in the curriculums we're taught, in the content, in the teaching methods that we're taught through. A lot more focus on moving away from Eurocentric knowledge. Knowledge produced by the minority should be consumed by the majority. I just think that we need to really diversify and decolonizing the learning experience, like just look at it all as a whole and just go through it in so much detail and change it in that sense.
Great, thank you. And Julian, what do you think about the biggest challenges facing students in Leeds?
Yeah, I definitely resonate with June. I talk to different students from different levels, and the challenges they perceive are very different from a person to another. And I think that's a challenge for the university, because the university should provide more personalized support for each student. So there were like issues concerning fitting in, moving from one level of study to another. For international students, they might have a very different academic, cultural background, and it's again hard for them to get accustomed to the system in the UK. And Abiha pointed about the mental health. Well, I think that like the root cause of like poor mental health for students is assessments, because they create most anxiety. And that's why I believe that assessments should be changed and universities should become like real educators. And I think Leeds could be a very good pioneer in this field. So yeah, thank you.
Great, they were all some really good answers. So next we've got the University of Leeds has one of the most complex programme catalogues in the country.
As education officer, how do you plan on balancing the competing educational needs of students across the institution? So, Abia, we'll start with you. What do you think about this issue?
I think as an education officer and working with school reps, as a school rep myself, I've worked closely with Serene. I think that relationship is extremely important to get an understanding across the whole student body. And I think by expanding the school rep program and involving postgrads and PhD students and getting everyone involved, it's a good way to get a universal understanding of all the needs of all students.
Great. And John, what do you think about that issue?
I think as a previous Erasmus exchange student from France to Leeds back to 2015, I already felt that issue. And it's actually getting more and more complex for myself today as a PhD level. And to answer that question, I think the key person as an education officer, you can never, through the 1 year, your term, can never learn everything by yourself. The best way to do it, so to deal with this problem, is to try to be a very good communicative, responsive. You be the good message and medium between students and the university, different institutions and schools. So that's the way to bridging them, to connecting them. So this is my first starting point. And also you have to be patient and be committed. So I would say someone mentioned to me from the former and correct education officer, you have irregular working time. So also it's how you fit into yourself as a student here, as a researcher here as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Greg?
I think it's very easy to forget just how many students are on this campus and how many different individual courses there are. So one important point on my manifesto is inclusive education policies all across the university. As a school rep, I've had a chance to help contribute to these. If any of you read my manifesto, which I hope you have, I've put up a lot of posters, I've given the definition as teaching that ensures everyone's access to education regardless of circumstance, and I really believe in this. So far, there have been 6 baselines developed that help with support, scheduling for lectures, assessment, marking, staff, and identifying specific leads to help push things forward. And I'd also like to help work on the feedback mechanism so students can properly inform their lecturers, their members of staff, when things aren't working and when they need extra support. Thank you.
Great. Joe, what do you think?
I want to continue what Greg said about discovery modules. I think it's an absolute brilliant feature of our university, and I'm not sure if any other university in the country offers this. But if you go into a discovery module, it can be quite daunting to be in the same room with people. They take it as an optional module, and you sometimes don't do well because there's usually a discrepancy between schools. And I want to offer more resources for discovery modules for people that need them. But I also want to go back to the school rep system, which is absolutely brilliant. I was a school rep myself last year. And we get so much support from the union, from the university, and what I want to do as an education officer would be to offer more support to course reps, because they do so much work that they didn't get credit for, and obviously should get more training. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Bethana, what do you think?
I do agree with a lot of the points Greg made. I think that accessibility is really important, and teaching practices and accessibility to modules, content, needs to be sort of across the board on all different programs. I also think timetables need to continue being looked at, and modules are like practically distributed. Sessions are practically distributed. I also think that content should be made accessible in ways other than just lectures and assessment and seminars, that kind of thing.
Great, thank you. And Julian?
Yeah, well, I think it's really important to listen to people and to try to put yourself in their shoes. So like for me, I really like to experience different things, and I would not mind to spend some time in a different school and see actually how the students study and what challenges they face there. Actually, I wanted to study medicine, but I was very rubbish at chemistry, so I would not mind going to the medicine school and see what are the challenges for them. Also, as I said before, it's really important to make sure that each person can satisfy their needs because they have different needs. So yeah, I think it's good to try to target each kind of school and each level of study. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And let's finish off with Ethan.
Okay. Well, actually, I have something different from others. I think instead of balancing the competing educational needs of different students, the first thing we should do is to fulfill their demands in common and focus on things that everyone can benefit from. For example, the feedback of modules of lecturers, if you are doing your assessment and you want to make sure that you can get feedback from lecturers, but it happens that sometimes you couldn't get that detailed feedback. So what we can do as an education officer, we can have a new criteria for the different schools so that they can give detailed feedback for their students, they can improve their levels and before their finals. So I think that's very important that we can fulfill their common needs, that everyone can improve their levels through these actions, because I want to take actions that really care for all the students here, not only postgraduate students, not only PhD, not only undergraduates, but all. So thank you.
Great, thank you all for that. So our next question is about representing different people. So we've got, given that the number of international taught postgraduate students is increasing at the university, how will you represent undergraduates, taught postgraduates and research postgraduates effectively? So John, should we start with you?
Yeah, right, it's be my first turn, be my first. Okay, you go first. Something I learned from a previous experience to study and worked in Japan, in France, and I would say there's kind of thing we can be inspired or be involved from a different education institutions. So, for example, nowadays we have like a welcome week to the international students. There you're supposed to have your welcome pack, and it's good. You give something to start as an instruction package, but I would say, can we do something called enhanced welcoming, like not week, but semester? So one thing we can do, for example, in Japan, for all foreign students, we have a personal tutor, someone already mentioned here. But to give you something, you are not, first you need something you can answer, get answered from the student-led network, but also you will have someone from the students, not only from the university side, to answer you. This is someone have a similar issue, similar to you, someone can help you more personally. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Greg?
Now, I know the old stereotype of students is that we're all 19, we're all constantly drunk, and none of us are going to lectures. But at this university, it's a lot different. More than a quarter of students are international, and on top of that, 32% are over 21, me included. I know you couldn't tell. But what I've tried to focus on in my manifesto, especially with the tutorial points, is that your tutor can be the perfect person to go to if you have any questions. Like for mine, I can go to him and say, oh, I don't know who to take this assessment to. How do I do this? I needed a bit of support. Where do I go to? And I know the experience isn't universal. And one thing I'd like to introduce is training so that all tutors can understand the systems in place for student support and for their support. So if you have a question, you can just go to them, and whatever you need, they can help. Thank you so much.
Great. And Jay?
So looking again from an international perspective, when you come here to uni, be it you're an undergraduate or postgraduate, it is quite daunting because you don't know how things are working here, and you're being told, look, your personal tutor is the person to go to for any issue. But the problem is that they do not always know how to deal with that issue, and that is why I want to offer all personal tutors mental health training, because unfortunately more and more students are struggling from hidden disabilities. So I think it's really important that if a personal tutor is made as a first person of contact, that they should be the one that could either give advice or point you in the right direction without you feeling like you're being pushed around for no reason. Thank you.
Great. And Bethana, what do you think?
I think to represent undergraduates, taught postgrad and research postgrad, we need to speak to them first. We need to know what issues they're having with representation, how the union can better represent them, and what solutions we can take forward. I think that's why one of my main points is about working collaboratively with students on different degree programs, working with school reps and course reps to empower their voices and make sure that they take action. Basically just trying to empower the student voice and make sure that every student knows that they can take issues or even non-issues to the next person, and that can be moved forward and a solution can be worked on.
Great, thank you. And Julian?
Yes, when I was thinking about my manifesto, I tried to make sure that the points are relevant to all levels of study. So, for example, diversifying the methods of assessment are not only for the undergrad's interest. So if you like to do more practical things, then your department should allow you to do that. But that would be applicable to master's students as well. People choose to do a master's degree for different reasons, either because they want to advance in their career, or because they want to do a PhD afterwards, or even like they might change the field of study, so have like a different master degree from their undergrad degree. So I think that like for them, they have to do more work than other people, and they may not use their best skills when they need to do their assessments. So also for improving language learning, if there are evening classes, then taught postgraduates who have like a very tight schedule, they can attend them as well.
Great, thank you. And Ethan?
Well, as I mentioned before, all the actions I plan to take come from all the students and want to benefit all the students. So it is true that there's an increasing number of international taught postgraduate students. I myself is one of them. But is it really matters? Yes, for the university, for the program manager, for the accommodation team maybe, but for the role of education officer to some degree. Well, the main point is that we can use the rep system effectively, because that's the best way for the students, the student rep, the course rep, the school reps to represent different level students, undergraduate, postgraduate, PhD, and so on. So that's really important to make this system more efficient. So that is one of my points of a manifesto. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And let's finish off with Abia. What do you think?
Essentially, in terms of representation, it has to be equal representation for all groups. I think opening up a dialogue and understanding the individual needs of these groups, understanding that international students may not have English as their first or even their second language, they may not understand the system around Leeds, understanding that PhD students may be isolated and alone all the time, understanding that master's students are only here for 1 year, learning and distinguishing each group will better help them and represent them equally.
Great, thank you. So we've got our final question now, and that's how will you ensure that the uni is giving students the high quality that they are paying for? So we're going to start with Greg, if that's okay with you. Yeah.
So there's a reason that tackle hidden course costs is at the top of my manifesto, because the question of what are we actually paying for, I think, is on everyone's mind quite a lot of the time. So I did a little bit of digging. The university last year made a profit of £18 million. And just to pop that in context, that's 360,000 textbooks. For all students, that is enough for 9 each. That's also 2,000 tuitions and 180,000 weeks of rent. And my question is, if the university is making all this money and they have all these resources and all this buying power, then why are students constantly complaining about, oh, I need to go buy this textbook. I have to pay £400 for a field course. That is not appropriate. I want, when I'm elected, to empower the university to use its buying power to try and buy more online textbooks and more copies of textbooks. And I'd like the university to be a lot more open about what you have to spend before you get here.
Great, thank you. And Joe, how will you ensure that the university is giving students the high quality that they're paying for?
To answer this question, I would like to go back to the rep system, which I think is working absolutely brilliant. All the course reps are putting in so much work. I think course reps can get, again, more support. But I think the reason why this rep system doesn't work properly is because it's not visible to the wider student body. I did a bit of research myself, and not a lot of people know who their school rep is, let alone their course rep, which is a massive issue that I want to tackle if elected education officer. And as a student, we are so empowered to make this change, and I just want to make students believe that they can be that change. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Vithana, what do you think?
Well, I mean, because we pay so much to the uni, and every student is in so much debt afterwards. Obviously, I mean, it is common sense, but we are the university's customers, and they could not run without us, without students. So I think that we just need to demand what we want. If the university is failing to provide something, we need to demand that of the university. And we need to rally together and sort of get the university to provide this thing. So some examples, obviously, are the textbook situation. We need to somehow make textbooks more accessible, digitize them, that kind of thing. Space availability as well, libraries, union spaces, university spaces, academic and pastoral support needs to be improved greatly. Yeah, there's a lot I could go into, but obviously I'm out of time.
Thank you. And Julian?
Yeah, well, definitely the tuition fees are quite high, at least like compared to other countries. And it feels like universities in the UK are decreasing in like their demand, and there are like other places around the world where there are like more international students going. And I think the most important thing is like, even though it is expensive, students should feel that like they are paying for the best value for their education. I'm really interested in the holistic education. So you come to university to get educated, to become like a better person afterwards. And it feels like it's more like a formality. You come here, you pay the money, you get your degree, you go in the work, the work life, but you may not feel that you are very well prepared just because all you've done was a formality. And maybe the assessments were not fit for the purpose of like enhancing your skills and getting the knowledge you need. So yeah, that's why I really want to change the assessments.
Great, thank you. And Ethan?
Well, I think the main focus still on resources and service, because, you know, we pay for our study and we want to have more resources and we want to have better service. I still think that, well, the most important thing for higher education is that the school can provide a better education environment and service for all the students so that they can achieve their goal and stand out of the pack naturally and automatically. They are not forced to do something. They are not pushed by the university to do something. They just choose their ways and choose their life. So I think as long as the universities, the schools can provide better service and well-reach resources for all the students so that they can grab things they need, well, that's enough. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anabia?
I think that's a really great question, because essentially my whole manifesto is based around giving students the high quality education that they are paying for. I've identified 4 areas, such as Bethana already said, digitizing core text. Why are we paying £80 for one module when the library can provide that for us, or we can simply find it online. At the end of the day, the university should be providing for what we are paying for. And as your education officer, I will research into the areas where you feel like you are limited, lobby the university, and demand what is right for all of us.
Great, thank you. And last but not least, Jen.
Thank you for being patient. I think just we're trying to running this role is called actually LUU Education Officer. So I really want to emphasize and strengthen to provide everything, the facility and every resource we can provide it based on the points from the union. So if there's a future from the last part of the manifesto, if you have time to read, it's union-based, LUU-based forum and events and seminars. We can have more of these occasions to support our students. It might give our little bit difficulty to try to interfere or to try to interrupt the university's policy, but the union is very dynamic, relatively open-minded, so that's the case we need to focus on. So as a potential education officer, well, this is a point I try to undertake. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. So these are all our questions that we've got. You all answered really well. I think any of you would make great education officers. If anyone else has got any questions, feel free to come and chat to them at the end or get in contact with them, because I'm sure they'll be happy to have a chat with you. So I'm going to hand back over to Seb, and that's that for education. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much to all of the education candidates there, and of course to Charlie Strang for jumping in at the last minute to moderate that panel. So on Lead LUU Live today, we've had the activities panel, we've had the community panel, we've had the panel for the Griffin editor, we've had the panel for welfare officer, and we've just had the panel for education officer. So still to come, we've got the union affairs panel and equality and diversity, and we'll get to those in just a few minutes. Live 2019 with LSTV and LSR. So far we've had 5 of the 7 debates. The 2 we've got left are equality and diversity, coming up a bit later on, but the one we're about to have is union affairs. So I'm joined by Chris, who's the current union affairs officer. So Chris, I've interviewed some of your colleagues earlier on, and the first question I asked them was to sum up their role in one sentence.
Well, I think it's what you make of it, primarily, what you're passionate about. But I think to sum it up in one sentence, like you said, is just to make sure the union's working for its members and working for students, whether that be the services we have on offer, the democratic processes that we run, and just generally just making sure the union works for everybody.
Perfect. And so what would you say that your biggest achievement this year's been as union affairs officer?
I think it's hard to pin down exactly on one thing, whether that's been sort of the question time style events, which we've sort of integrated into the sort of our democratic calendar throughout the year, whether it's looking at the value offers throughout all the things that we do in the union, whether it's terrace, old bar, pyramid, gotta love a toasty and pyramid, or sort of representing students out, in the wider community as well, whether that's in the local press or in the national press as well. So I think a wide variety of things. I think it's quite hard to pin down on exactly one thing.
So at this time last year, you were sat here debating, and you had a manifesto then. Have you achieved everything on it?
At this stage, no. But I think it's important to say, even though the new people are about to be in next week, we're not quite finished yet. We're still relevant for a little bit longer, so there's definitely still more on there that I want to get done and get achieved.
Perfect. So if you had one message for all of the candidates who are running in this election, not necessarily union affairs, everyone, what would that message be?
Keep going. From what I've seen so far, everyone's doing fantastically well. I think you're halfway through. I think just go for it. You've got 7 more days left, something like that. Just absolutely go for it and just go straight in there and get out there campaigning, get there talking to students, and you can learn from them and you can find out what they want and use that for your campaign as well.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Chris. And now let's hand over to Jake and the union affairs candidates.
Hello and welcome to this very exciting debate to decide who will become the next union affairs member on the executive. So we have Elizabeth on my left and we have Lauren on my right. I will have to say at this point that two of the other candidates who are running cannot be here. So Charlie Steele and Ziran Yang are unable to make it, but Charlie did provide this statement. He says, My name is Charlie Steele. Vote for me. And with that, I'm sure I have just electrified his voting base. Anyway, we're going to jump straight into opening statements. So, Elizabeth, if you would like to go first.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth, a postgraduate student studying management in business school. I come from China, and I have 3 years experience in running other student union affairs, and I am a patient and accountable candidate. I will focus on hearing your voice, meeting your needs, and saving your money when I begin to run union affairs. So vote for me and speak for yourself. Thank you.
And to Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren. So I'm your current activities officer, and I'm now running to be your union affairs officer. This year I've had the most amazing time, and I'm really passionate about making sure that all of our students here have the best experience, because I had a brilliant one and I want to make sure that everybody has that same experience. And I just care so much outside of clubs and societies, so that's why I want to be your union affairs officer now.
Thank you very much to both of you. So let's jump straight into the questions. So the first question, given that the student movement and the union have had a rich political history campaigning on a range of issues, how far do you think that student unions and our union should be political? Would you like to go first, Lauren?
Yeah, of course. So I see the union as a representative of the student body. So in terms of being political, I think that's based on whether it's something that our student body cares about. And if we know that the majority of our students want to fight for something that they think is right, then we should, of course, support them in that. I think also that we have, 25 political and campaigning societies that are doing that, and we should definitely be supporting them. They do great things. So yes, in that way, but I think it's all about judging what our students want and not us deciding what we want to do ourselves. We are like one and of the same thing.
Elizabeth?
Yes, I think so. So as I just put it into my manifest, I will hold more roundtables for political, economic, and other hotspot questions for students to discuss, and let them developing a very critical views, and all of the voice is welcomed. Also, I will encourage more international students and local students to take part in our activities. Thank you.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for those answers. Moving on to the issue of the NUS, the National Students' Union, has been in the news quite a lot recently about having its funding cut and controversial things that its president has done and things like that. So given the news surrounding the NUS at the moment, what do you think the relevance of the NUS is sort of post-2020? Would you like to go first this time, Elizabeth?
I think I have seen the news, and many university students, maybe they want to live in the National Union of Students, but I think education means students have already put money on tuition fees, and they will spending more money on study, like something. So National Union of Students will help them to save some money, to let the money invest in on some more meaningful things. So I think we could say it.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, because as I started my role, I actually got onto the NUS Finance Committee, and I've sat on that for this year, and I am the only student representative on that in that group. And so I've had very in-depth look into what's going on there. And I think that the problem is that NUS has got too broad and over-complex, and they've said that themselves. That's exactly what happened. They're trying to do too many things. And actually, when they used to focus what they wanted, and because the student body is huge across the country, if they focused that in and used it on a few key points, they could make huge change like they have in the past. So they secured council tax exemption for full-time students, which made a huge difference, and they helped create the student rail card, which saves us all a fortune. And I think if we went back to a place where they focused on a few things rather than everything, they could be brilliant again.
Lovely, thank you to you both. The next question, the University Union last year renewed its policy on no platforming speakers. So just a very simple question, what do you think about this policy? Should the union support no platforming speakers?
I mean, that policy was submitted by the exec, which I am on, so yes, I agree with it. I think people can often think of it as, oh, you're stopping people from freedom of speech, and it's not about that. It's about making sure our students feel safe on campus, and actually it's about our building. This building is for our students, run by students. Everyone should feel safe in it, and so it is up to us to make sure that nobody feels like there's a barrier to taking part in anything in LUU, because what's the point in them being a member if they don't feel like they can use the space and they don't feel comfortable here? And I think those two things get confused very often.
And I also agree with this policy. As I just said, all of the voice, views, opinions is so welcomed in our university, and I will offer more opportunities to let them say what they want to speak. I think university stage is a stage you can say something about yourself. Then you will hear different views. You will see the difference in the world. So I think it's a very good thing. Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So we're going to delve slightly back into politics for a second. You will probably be aware that last year the union had a vote on whether the union should support the campaign for a second referendum on the Britain's membership of the European Union. So I know we talked a bit about whether the union should be political before. Do you think that the union should continue in the next year under your role, possibly as the Union Affairs Officer? Should the union continue to support that campaign for a second vote?
It's about Brexit.
Yes. So
Sorry.
basically, there's a campaign. It's okay. There's a campaign to have a second referendum, and the union decided that they would campaign or support the campaign for that. So,
yes.
What do you think of that?
I think Brexit is so difficult. Political question. Different people have different answers. I think unions should support students to saying their own views. Campaign is also supported in the because UK is a very open country, and the government also encouraged the citizen to doing what they want to do. So I think maybe we should support it.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, Brexit is really complicated. I won't argue against that. But I think the reason to continue supporting it is that we now have so many students at Leeds who wouldn't have been able to vote on that originally. And Brexit and the deal or no deal that we might end up with there is very different to what people expected in the campaigns originally. And so we need to support that people have a say in what that becomes and what happens going forward.
Thank you to both of you. So if you were to become Union Affairs Officer, my question would be, how would you encourage or try and get more influence for students at the university in the sort of running of the university and the students' influence on its management? So, for example, a lot of students expressed quite a bit of frustration last year when the strikes happened, the lecturer strikes, at the fact that they weren't able to communicate their feelings towards the leadership of the university. So how would you make it easier for students to express their opinions to the leadership and influence how the university is run?
So if I was to be elected to be Union Affairs Officer, I would sit on University Council. All of the exec also sit on University Court, and they're both the governing bodies of the university, and I think it's about creating more opportunities for the students to tell me what they want to be said in those spaces, because it's such a great platform for us to have. We have a lot of voice in there, and speaking from experience, the university do respect what the execs say. It's just sometimes we don't have that avenue to hear what it is that the students want us to shout about. And so we have this thing at LUU, which is called an Ask Anything for staff with the CEO and the Union Affairs Officer, and I would like to have something similar with the exec and the students, so students can come and tell us and come and ask us anything at several points in the year, so we don't miss out on those important things that they might not think to bring to us.
So I think solve a problem, the first thing you need to do is to know what's the problem. So I will set up more channels to know what student needs. And maybe they will tell me what their pressure on and what they want me to do to help them. Then and also I will cooperate with the library. Let library take some seminars or lecture to let students to study well, help them and give them more study skills. Because for myself, many international students, they may don't know the library will offer these study skills. But when I talk to the library, they give me very useful skills. Then I think I benefit for this. Thank you.
Okay, we have come to the final question. You have both answered very well, so thank you. So finally, it's quite a simple one. If you were to be elected under your leadership, how would you encourage more students to get involved in more of the societies and the activities which you have on offer? I'm going to ask Elizabeth to start on this final question.
Okay, I think money is a kind of motivation. I will cooperate more business companies and let them invest more money when they invest us, and they will have a good branding. So I think they will do this. And also the student is their market here. Then I will talk to students and to know what activities do they want and they interest in. According to their needs, then we could create more activities and let more students come in. Also, I will provide different languages because as we know, in our school, all of the international students cannot understand all of the English, maybe. Yes.
Okay, and Lauren?
I mean, as activities officer, this has been kind of my job for 8 months already. So what I have been doing already is I've been running a campaign called Tell Me More, which is all about accessibility. And I think that's a big thing in our clubs and societies. And when I say that word, I don't mean making sure you do it in a room with a ramp. Like, accessibility means so much beyond that. And actually, it could be down to a language barrier. There's a lot of societies that use loads of colloquialisms and jargon, and there's going to be so many people in that room that don't understand that and feel it's a barrier and they don't feel comfortable. Anything could make somebody not feel welcome. The drinking, it's a big issue in our clubs and societies, and we are trying our hardest to tackle that. But it's about educating people, because usually the people who end up on committees are the people who found it really easy to be in that society or that club. And so we need to try and make them realise what a barrier they can create for other people. And yeah, I would do a bit more of that, hopefully.
Lovely. Well, that brings us to the end of our questions. You have both been terrific. Thank you very much, and all the best of luck to you. Again, it's a shame that Charlie and Ziran couldn't be with us, but with that, I will hand back to Seb. Thank you very much.
Yes, and a round of applause for the Union Affairs candidates. As Jake just said, there are two candidates who couldn't make it today, but you can check out their manifestos online at luu.org.uk/lead-LUU. That's also where you vote. So just a very quick reminder about how to vote. So voting opens next week on Monday, closes on Thursday, the 28th of February at 5 p.m. The way we vote here in this election is alternative votings, which means you rank the candidates 1 to 5, 1 being your favourite. Well, not 1 to 5, 1 to however many there are, 1 being your favourite. And that means that your vote has more impact and is less likely to be wasted. So we've got one debate left to come. That's the Equality and Diversity Officer, and that's coming up in just a few minutes. Hello and welcome back to Lead LUU Live with Leeds Student Television and Leeds Student Radio. We're on to the last debate of the day. This one is for the Equality and Diversity Officer, and I'm joined by the current Equality and Diversity Officer, Tamsin. Hello.
Hello.
Same first question I've asked everyone else. Please, could you sum up your role in one sentence?
I can try. My role is mainly to make people feel like they can be authentically themselves on campus. So no matter the reasons that make them feel unauthentic, the role tries to combat that and lets people live however they want on campus, safely and happily.
Perfect. So what would you say is your biggest achievement this year?
I think one of the things, even though when you look behind the scenes it's actually quite easy to do, is the free contraception. I think the fact that now people don't have to worry about where it's going to come from, don't have to worry about money, and the fact that everyone knows that students are having sex, now they can do it safely. I said in the union, not in the union, hopefully. They can do it by going upstairs in the union and not having to go into Boots, pay £6 for a packet of condoms. And also the fact that we've got Sex Week coming up in a couple of weeks, which is going to be kind of a follow-on from the condoms, just making sure everyone knows that having sex safely, sanely and consensually, is good.
So this time last year, you were in this position debating. You had a manifesto. How is that manifesto looking now? Have you achieved everything?
No. So my manifesto has completely changed since last year. There's parts of it that I've been working on, but I've tried to adapt everything that I wanted to do in my 3 current main objectives. But my manifesto was things that I cared about really, really deeply. And so now I've tried to absorb them and make them more sustainable instead of just doing things once and then hoping that people carry it on. I've tried to implement it in the other work that I've been doing.
Wonderful. And finally, if you had one message for all of the candidates we've heard from today and the ones we're about to hear from, what would that be?
I think it is just be authentic. I think make sure you run on a platform that you're proud of and that you use this experience to just become the best version of you that you can be, because you're never going to get this chance again. So just do whatever you want with it and just make sure you're being authentic.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So now let's get into that debate for the role of Equality and Diversity Officer.
Hi, my name is Abhinav, and we are joined here with 6 wonderful candidates on our panel, one of whom will be our future Equality and Diversity Officer. So to start with, we're just going to go around the panel and everyone's just going to introduce themselves and introduce their agenda.
Hi everyone, my name is Penny and my Chinese name is Pei Si Zhan. I'm an undergraduate student, second year student, studying international business and marketing right now. When I say equality and diversity, my first instant of definition is to provide equal opportunity and also respect diversity of individuals. In terms of that, what I believe is to spark everybody's shine and also respect everybody's individuality and also how your diverse background and also your uniqueness. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chloe. I am a 4th year French and German student, enterprise scholar and business owner. I would like to raise awareness of the facilities available to our students at LUU and facilitate change for issues that students are passionate about. I think it's important. I think in terms of equality and diversity, it's important to pass the mic and not speak for everyone.
Hello, I'm Georgia. I'm a second year English and sociology student. Running for equality and diversity is something I'm really passionate about. The reason I wanted to do it is to improve support for disabilities, but not just disabilities, invisible ones as well, and make our union a more diverse and welcoming space.
Hi, my name's Rachel. I'm a 3rd year broadcast journalism student, and my main manifesto points cover creating equal opportunities, especially for students with disabilities like myself. More awareness for the LGBT community. I really want to create a more safe and nurturing environment for trans students, and I want to focus more on gender equality and creating safe spaces, especially for those who have been affected by domestic abuse and sexual violence. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Xiao Xiao. I'm a performance design student. My main manifesto points are to improve integration, employability, and student voice. I've talked to a wide range of students. I believe there are most students who want to enjoy meeting people from other cultures, and we are just trying to facilitating more opportunities for interaction. Second, I want us to get prepared for our future. And the third is, I want our student voice to be heard. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rasheen. I am a part-time MA student, and I would like to really push accessibility in the uni, so making sure like invisible illnesses and stuff like that are educated, work with faculty, work with the union, work with the students and give everyone a voice, and just make sure that our community is diverse and strong, and like everybody gets their own platform to say what they need to say. Thank you.
Wonderful, great candidates and great manifestos. Let's start with our first question. I know some of you mentioned this a bit, but what does equality and diversity mean to all of you? We'll start with Chloe.
Okay, so like I mentioned previously, I think equality and diversity means passing the mic to minority communities to actually have a chance to say what they want and how they'd like to be helped. I think it's important to actually allow people to speak for themselves and not just try to be a voice for everybody. I think this can be achieved with open forums for those who are happy to come and air their views in person, as well as Google Forms for those who would like to remain anonymous. And my main manifesto point is a human library for LGBT, BAME and disabled students going on a year abroad. But I think this concept could be applied to a lot of different campaigns throughout the union.
Georgia?
Okay, so moving on from that, a lot of similar points to Chloe, to be honest. But one of my main points in my manifesto is to make our union more welcoming. So like a more welcoming space for everyone. And I would do that by creating study spaces for specific needs within the university. So people who are disabled and like with disabilities such as ADHD, autism, need like better spaces to study, and that is something that I think is really important in the uni and will help to prevent isolation and loneliness across the university campus.
Rachel?
Thank you. So for the main part of equality and diversity, I believe in equal opportunities for all students. In being part of a minority group myself, having autism, I really find that it's hard to have the same opportunities and be equal to a lot of other students, and that a lot more support, especially emotionally and socially, can be put in place to ensure that everyone is given these chances, everyone is given safe and supporting environments so that everyone can make the most out of their university experience.
Great. Xiao?
Equality and diversity means people from different backgrounds can be treated equally. We can have equal communication. We have the chance to communicate equally. It's our choice to talk with people from other cultures, and it shouldn't be. We have no choice. We could only hang out, get along with people from our same culture.
Great. Rasheen?
I think for me, equality and diversity is about empathy. So it's about maybe knowing that you're different from another group of people, but accepting that and trying hard to gain the knowledge to make it a fair playing field, but also seeking that knowledge and having it readily available. So in terms of faculty, making sure the education is there so that they understand the needs of the different students, and they're not just trying to guess, and they're not just saying, oh, go speak to counselling if you've got this problem. They should have a little bit of the education themselves, just so that every group is treated fairly, especially in the case of disabilities and hidden disabilities that was said earlier, that even a tiny bit of knowledge can go a really, really long way. And even if you're just a signpost to something else, that's brilliant, because it means that you point someone in the direction of the help they need, so then they can achieve what they can, which is cool.
And lastly, Pacey?
Yes, as the last one to answer this question, basically everybody here has kind of covered what I decided to say. But it's still, like I said before, the instant definition of this one is to respect, is to provide equal opportunity and also provide and also respect diversity of individuals, because personally I just feel like everyone deserves to be respected and everybody deserves to treated equally. And in terms of that, when as a kind of volunteering in the uni, what I see is everybody has their uniqueness, everybody has their own story and background that shapes who they are right now, and I want to make that like more visible to everybody here, to see what you are shining, what your uniqueness is. In terms of doing that, I want to provide equal opportunity for other problems in life, and just like visa application, like how do you find, how do you don't have any problem like struggles in life, that I will try to fix that for you, and then you can just live your life and you can find your finest bar to have a drink and take your best Instagram picture. Thank you.
Wonderful. I think we all want a really good Instagram feed, don't we? So second question is, how would you make sure you incorporate equality and diversity into everything you do? So that would be whether passing policies or organising events or initiatives. We'll start with Georgia.
Okay, so I am bisexual and disabled myself, so being part of like a protected characteristic would be something I think that would help people, because having someone that understands and is in the same situation is something that's really important, and it's not really easy to approach someone about your situation if they've never experienced something similar. So I think with my experiences, that would help me to be able to help other people and incorporate what I've experienced into my policies, and to help the union become more welcoming and like a safer space for everyone.
Cool. Rachel?
Thank you. So, as I mentioned before with my disability, I feel as though every day at university is a fight for equality, a fight for equal chances, and I find that whilst there's a lot of educational support at the university, there's been next to no emotional or social support for students like myself. I plan, if I get this role, to work very closely in creating more workshops to help with public speaking, and creating more employability events just to help students with these essential life skills. I also think more support groups should be put on in the union just to help with the emotional strains that everyday university life can bring. Thank you.
Xiao.
I used to talk with students from my school a lot, but since my campaign starts, in order to know what students really want, I talk to people from different schools. There are undergraduate home student, postgraduate home student, international student, EU student, and some of my friends. I believe all of my manifesto points are from the students and staff. I talk about employability, so I went to JobLink to talk with the staff. So I really know my points, what are my points, and what they will solve the current issues. So I believe I want to hear people's voice. I want to know what our students think, what should we improve. So if I got this position, I'm welcomed all of our students come to talk to me, and we are all contributing to make our university better. Thank you.
So I can speak from coming from like a few different groups. So I can speak about coming from the disabled community, the LGBT community, like the working class one, but I can't pretend to know the struggles of other groups. So my plan would be to put together some consultation team. Sounds too official, but that would be the idea, and have representatives from the different faculties, from the different minority groups, and to actually let them have the platform to speak. Because like Joshua was saying, I've been having a lot of very good conversations with staff, with the disability team, with students, with undergrads, and the level of confusion around some things is all over the place. So just to have some people to sit down and outline what they want to happen, what struggles they have, it would let them lead the change. It wouldn't be me being like, I know these are my problems, I want to fix this. It would be like, this is the community speaking, and I'm going to give them the chance to do so.
Pacey?
Sorry, can you repeat that question again?
Yeah. How would you make sure you incorporate equality and diversity into everything you do?
Okay, so first, I'm actually a volunteer right now doing Liberation Coordinator under Equality and Diversity. So I kind of like helping and organizing History Month events right now. Sometimes I'll be like panelist or just host from time to time. And then like after knowing what uni has already done for students, like discussions, workshop, History Months that we have already pushing forward to students, what I'm seeing is we need something to get to more people to know that uni is doing the great things, and we need to get more people to aware that we're doing good things. So I'm like when I have this problem in mind, what I see is how can I get approach to these students. That's my first initiative of doing so. I'm trying to expose myself to more international students, more people that are just stick to with their academic life, and by doing so, I found that people love this event. They just don't have the access to know about that. So what I'm trying to do is to let more people to know this, and then just have everybody enjoy their life in Leeds and love your time in Leeds. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Chloe.
Okay, how would I incorporate indie into the work that I do? Well, as you can see, I'm black. It's kind of hard not to miss it. I'm actually a part of other minority communities, which I won't mention because I don't think that you should have to self-identify to be able to access equality and diversity in the union. But I do think it's important to have an intersectional framework in everything that you do, and consider the protected characteristics that your students may have and may not want to disclose, but still have the right to be represented in the university. That's why I have Pledge 13. It's the opportunity for students to tell me what they think should be added to my manifesto. And yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. Moving on, a bit of a personal question, so don't feel pressured to answer it. Have you personally, I know some of you mentioned it, but have you personally experienced any issues in terms of equality and diversity, whether it be at the university or the union? And in what way can we work towards solving these issues and making sure that in the future no one else has to go through this? We'll start with you.
Hi, so I'm kind of repeating my same points before as with my disability, but I've really found that there isn't the emotional support there and the social support just isn't there. I can't speak for all disabled students, but from my perspective, the educational support has been amazing. But outside of that, I feel like there's nothing to help me in those days where I'm just feeling so incredibly overwhelmed. I really think that more should be done at the union to support students like myself and with other hidden or visible disabilities. And I really believe that this can be done, and we just need to be more open about our differences, and I think more acceptance in general, so there's not that stigma and people don't feel like they have to hide how they really are. Thank you.
I want to tell a story. It was told by my housemate, who is an African PhD student. When he was having his master's degree here, at that time they were doing an assignment, and a girl, an English girl, didn't believe he did the assignment himself. He asked, "Is that you who did it?" So at that time we all say she's rude. But after that, she tell everybody that my housemate, he is smart. I don't think it's an issue of rudeness. I think it's just a lack of awareness. We all have this kind of perceived barrier about people. We have bias, we have prejudice, and all we can do is to break all the perceived barriers. We don't want prejudice. I want everybody can be equally treated. Thank you.
So I was fairly well supported by my school and faculty and tutor and everything, but I think mine is an isolated case. So I would, like I said earlier, educate the personal tutors for definite. And I've also had a really good mentor. So in terms of like emotional support, she's been awesome, like taking me for coffees and stuff. So I would like to make sure that any student who wants a mentor gets one. And that would work both ways. So it'd work in terms of volunteering. So I was a mentor for the first year students in the school, and it was great. And then my mentor was one for me, and like it's just a pay it forward kind of community. And it just means that everybody has somebody to turn to at some point, and they don't need to ask anything in return. So even if it's just a coffee and to rant about a dissertation deadline, that's fine. On top of that, the educating of the personal tutors on things, giving them a tiny little bit of knowledge so that they could go somewhere for more help. Would mean that the access would just be there for anyone who needed it. Yeah.
So I think most candidates that are doing this leadership race right now, we always have our personal stories that back us up. I mean, that's why we're doing this. We always have something that we want to change. It's based off our own experience. And that's kind of my initiative of doing everything right now too. I want to be the voice. I want to be someone that actually listen to voice and seeking things that we have in common. And like my personal experience, that would include people. People have come to me like what kind of experience they have been through, like Xiaoxiao's case, like what her friends has been through. And that's why I have this my quote campaign here, give to show you around. Like it's about like all the voices I heard from my peers and also voices that I actually heard before. So this one is, why are you working so hard? You're just a girl. And you're too pretty to be a lesbian. And come on, don't be a girl. And also, did you show your boobs to get that job? I missed one. Oh, here. I got called stupid because of my accent.
Wonderful. I think that's all the time we have for that, but thanks for sharing. Yeah.
Please, could you repeat the question?
Yeah. Have you personally experienced any issues in terms of equality and diversity, whether it be in the union or the university? And what can we do in order to tackle these issues, make sure that no one in the future has to go through all of that?
Yes, I'm not unfamiliar with being the only black person in the room or in this leadership race, actually. I was also the only black face in a work placement I did in Germany. I was doing a teaching placement, and I was not well received by my host school. I didn't actually do a lot of teaching, which is why I had the time to set up my own business. So whether or not I am the next Equality and Diversity Officer, I will be working with LCS to improve the tailored support for BAME students going on a year abroad. I would like to introduce a human library for BAME, LGBT, and disabled students who would like to go on a year abroad, so they have an opportunity to speak to people who have been through it and not just the people who have had an amazing time and get invited to the lectures. Thank you. As I mentioned before, I am bisexual and disabled, but sometimes it's just not a matter of whether you take it personally, because for me it's quite a personal thing if people I'm close to or like my family or friends are being affected by it. I take that personally, like it affects me to know that they are going through like being judged or not feeling welcome, or not getting the support that they need. So yeah, that's one of the things I would say. Like, I have taken it personally, like as myself, I've experienced it, but for me, it's not. It's more about other people as well, and making sure that I'm able to help them.
Wonderful, thanks. Now for the final question for today, which is, what is your ideal vision of a union? What is your ideal union? What does it look like? Whether it be in terms of equality and diversity or any other issues in terms of welfare activities, what does it look like? We'll start with Xiao Xiao.
my ideal union would be everybody is in the union, they with a smile. Sometimes we don't feel like to communicate because it seems so serious. So if you are with a smile, I won't feel so hard to talk with you. And I think there are some stereotypes about certain group of people, such as English people are reserved, Chinese people are loud, this kind of thing. But I've met a lot of English people, and I feel they are really kind. But at first, I don't communicate much with them, so I might think they hard to talk. But when when I know them, I realize we are all the same people. So these are just some, like I said, perceived bias. We need to break all this, and I believe if we are very open, we can be friends. Thank you.
Was the question about ideal union or ideal uni, or was it just?
Yeah, just the ideal union.
Ideal.
What does it look like?
So I think it's more like a feeling. So it's more like about a communal kind of feeling. I reckon that random acts of kindness, for example, smiling at people as you pass the street, like that just makes people happy. Taking someone for a coffee if they look stressed. Like asking someone if they're okay, or if they've had a shower today, or if they've slept in late. Like making sure people are taking care of themselves. If somebody cancels on you, be like, that's okay, that's cool, because you're doing you. So I think it's more about a feeling and more about a sense of kindness than it is about a physical thing that you can put on anywhere. Yeah.
So this question actually kind of corroborate with one of my manifestos. I want to see more celebration of diversity in uni. First of all, just having more decorations when there's a festival from like another kind of background, diverse background. Like there will be more decoration when there's Chinese New Year, or there will be more decoration when it's St. Patrick's Day, things like that. It won't be not just Halloween, Valentine's, and Christmas. That's kind of thing. And I also want to see more cultural markets. And but while doing this, I want to also provide equal opportunities to all of us. So you will have chance to, we will support societies to do all the celebrations, cultural markets, and do more like awareness building for all the important historical days for every country. Everybody have different religions. And I want to just say that we are different, but we are also same as well, because we're all students from University of Leeds. Thank you.
An ideal union for me would be efficient. We all want more, we all want better, but if we actually had specific measurable goals, we would be able to work towards actually achieving more of what we're all here to achieve. It would also be transparent. I think that a directory of all the services available is needed. There's a lot that the union does that people simply aren't aware of, and if there were more people involved or more people aware, then they could run more effectively. And I think that an ideal union would be collaborative, working with different societies and different faculties for common goals, rather than each of us trying to struggle towards the same thing individually. I think a more efficient union would be one that takes into account the facts and figures that are in our university. So there are around 3,300 disabled students in our university. This is just the home EU students. I couldn't find the stats for the other one, which is about 13%. And 18% of undergraduate home or EU students are also from a BME background. And I don't think the union takes this into account as much as they should. Every change that they should make should be looking at what needs to be changed, what are they missing out, and focusing more on those groups.
So I think in an ideal union, everyone would be equal, all diversities and races and genders would be celebrated. I think that can be achievable, but it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of hard work. I think in the meantime, it's important to start out small to make sure that all communities are accepted. A lot of what I want to do is raise awareness for the LGBT community, and I want to do that by increasing the amount of gender-neutral bathrooms around campus. There are none in my school currently, and I know that a lot of people are affected by this. I've spoken to a lot of people of the community, and they also said they don't feel comfortable in having that the same as a disabled bathroom, and that simply slapping a sticker on the door is not enough to facilitate for them. So more awareness should be put in place, and we should facilitate for that. Thank you.
Wonderful, some interesting ideas I think we all can do with. And for our closing statements, can we all have 30 seconds to just remind everyone about our agenda and what we wish to do as equality and diversity officers, starting with you?
So I can't lie, I didn't plan a closing statement, but I would like to say that I think that we need to start being proactive in our inclusivity issues. So rather than waiting for something to come along and then trying to fix it manically, we should make sure that all opportunities are there for everybody. Also, I just want to really push, like, be kind to people just for the sake of it. Even if I don't win, like, people just start being nicer to each other, because why not? It's just better.
By doing an officer, it would be just me helping others, trying to feel that you're treated equally and you're being respected in any of way, and not be harmed by all the quotes that I've shown you guys, and you'll be just fine in all the ways you being yourself, and that's what I want to be happened as soon as I become an officer. Thank you.
My goal is to pass the mic and not try to speak for everyone. I want to be able to collaborate with people, with societies, with minority groups, so that everyone has a chance to talk about issues that they're passionate about. And I want to raise awareness for the services that are already available in the union. Thank you. Okay, so I am absolutely rubbish at public speaking, so not all of my points have come across today as they should, or like I've not got everything across that I wanted to say, because I'd be here for hours. But I think regardless of who wins, everyone here wants to make the union better, and I believe that they would all do that. So as long as the union is made better, that's all that matters.
I think definitely following on from what Georgia just said, I think everyone here has made some excellent points. We all really care about equality and diversity, and no matter who wins this election, we're all going to put policies in place to make sure that everyone at the university feels equal and comfortable. I think overall it's important for myself to run, because I've been fighting for equality for my entire life. And I understand I can't speak on behalf of all diverse groups, but I think it's important for everyone to become involved.
Thank you. Xiao Xiao.
At first, my campaign slogan was, "Let's make history." But when campaign starts, I start to meet a lot more people. They are offering me tremendous help. It's such an honor to have so many friends to come here to help me. And there are three things I value most in the world. That is love, freedom, and friendship. Then I think, who cares about history? I care about people. So why don't we? So I changed my campaign slogan into "Let's make friends." Why don't we communicate more? So why don't we be friends?
Wonderful. Yeah, let's all be friends, guys. We don't have to compete. We can run together as a team. Are we allowed to do that? No. Okay. Anyways, that will be all from our panelists today. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for sharing your views. And now we'll go back to Seb.
Wonderful, thank you very much, Abhinav. And that's almost all we've got time for here at Lead LUU Live 2019. So just to summarise, we've heard from over 30 candidates today, all going for 7 roles. So that's 6 roles on the Union Executive and the role of Griffin Editor as well. If you've missed any of it, you can read all their manifestos online at luu.org.uk/leadluu. And that's where you can vote as well. And the deadline to vote by is next Thursday, the 28th of February at 5 p.m. Voting opens on Monday. Of course, you can find all of the candidates. Most of them have got stuff on social media, so just search the hashtag LeadLUU for that. I forgot to say earlier on, you can also vote in Common Ground and in the foyer next week. So that is it from us at Leeds Student TV and Leeds Student Radio. Thank you very much for watching, and bye-bye.